Adam, Adam, where are you hiding? Why do you run from me? I heard your voice in the garden and fear gripped me. I was naked, so I hid.
Since our first breath, humanity has fled from the divine.
And every step carried a weight. This is not merely ancient history. It is the story of you, your broken promises, your deepest fears, and your search for identity. When we stumbled into darkness, a voice called us back. Even in rebellion, the sacred promise remained. And when the dark grew deepest, a light appeared. This is no mere text. It is the blueprint of human consciousness, the genesis of your own soul. This is Adam. Where are you hiding? Long ago, before time began, the Creator shaped the cosmos and the earth. The planet was formless, a vast void. Pitch-black darkness cloaked the deep, while the divine breath hovered over the silent seas. Then came the command, "Let there be light." And light erupted. Seeing its goodness, the Creator tore the light away from the shadow. He named the brightness day and called the dark night. Sunset passed, sunrise returned, the first day. Then came the call to split the waters, setting some above and some below. And so a vast canopy divided the deep below from the deep above. He named this endless blue the sky. Sunset and sunrise marked the second day. Then God spoke, "Let the lower waters gather, and let the hidden earth finally rise." And it was done. He named the dry ground earth, and the massive basins of water he called the seas. And the Creator saw its beauty. He spoke, "Let the dry ground burst with life, green grass seeding plants and trees bearing fruit." The soil answered, sprouting fields of green and orchards of heavy fruit, each holding the seed of its own future. It was beautiful. Evening faded into the third morning. Then he commanded, "Let brilliant lights ignite in the dome to divide day from night. These markers will dictate the seasons, the days, and the passing years, casting light upon our world." And it was done. He forged two massive beacons, the brilliant sun to rule the day, and the silver moon to guide the night. Along with them he scattered the stars, placing them high above to pierce the dark, govern the hours, and draw lines between light and shadow. The Creator saw the harmony of it all. Twilight fell, and morning rose, completing the fourth day. Then he commanded, "Let the deep waters teem with vibrant life, and let winged creatures soar high through the open sky." So he created the majestic leviathans of the deep, every schooling fish that glides through the currents, and every bird of the air. It was good. He blessed them, whispering, "Multiply and fill the earth, inhabit the oceans, and let the birds fill the skies." Night came, then the dawn of the fifth day. God spoke, "Let the land bring forth living beasts and herds. Let creeping things and predators roam, each following its own nature." And it was done. He forged every beast, every herd, and every crawling creature after its own pattern. Seeing its goodness, he spoke a deeper mystery. "Let us craft humanity in our likeness, as our mirror on earth. They will hold dominion over the deep sea, the flying birds, the herds, and every creature that walks the soil." Thus the Creator carved humanity to mirror his own divine spark. Male and female, he sculpted them. He whispered his blessing, "Be fruitful and multiply. Spread across this wild earth. Cultivate the world and guide every creature that swims, flies, or walks upon the dust." He told them, "Behold, I offer you every seed-bearing plant and every orchard tree to nourish your fragile bodies. This shall be your sustenance, and to every animal on land or wing, I provide the green grass for their hunger." And it was complete. The Creator gazed at his vast design, finding it profoundly good. Night fell, and dawn broke upon the sixth day. Thus the cosmos, the earth, and all their wild wonders stood fully completed. When the seventh day arrived, the labor was done. The Creator stepped back, resting from the massive work of Genesis. He sanctified this day, carving a quiet space of holiness in time itself. This is the sacred tale of how the heavens and the earth were woven into existence. In those ancient days before fields turned green, no bush had sprouted from the dry soil. Rain had not yet fallen, and no human hand existed to cultivate the sleeping earth. Instead, a deep mist rose from the deep, gently watering the barren ground. Then from the damp dust, the Creator sculpted man. He breathed his own warm breath into his nostrils, and clay became a living soul. Eastward, in a land called Eden, the Creator planted a sanctuary. There he placed the newly awakened man. Out of this soil he drew forth every kind of beautiful tree, magnificent to gaze upon, and rich with nourishing fruit. At the very heart of the garden stood two trees, the tree of life and the fateful tree of the knowledge of good and evil. A great river surged through Eden to water the garden, eventually dividing into 4 streams. The first of these was the Pishon. Why do we still search for a lost paradise? In the ancient texts, a river flows around Havilah, a land of pure gold and precious gems. Then comes the Gihon, winding through the ancient land of Cush. And the third river, the Tigris, carving through history. It flows east of Assyria. Next is the Euphrates. Here the Creator placed man in Eden not for idle leisure, but to work and watch over this sacred space. And the Lord God commanded the man, "You are free to eat from every tree here, except one. Touch not the tree of knowledge of good and evil, for the day you eat of it, you will surely die." Then the Lord God observed, "It is not good for man to be alone. I will make a companion, a perfect partner who truly fits his soul." Out of the dust, God shaped every beast and bird. He brought these creatures before the man, watching silently to see what names his mind would give them. And whatever the man called them, that was their name. He catalogued the beasts of the field and the birds of the air, mapping his dominion through language. Yet among them all, Adam found no true equal. So the Lord God cast a heavy sleep upon the man. From his side he took a single rib, sealing the wound with tender flesh. From that bone the Creator fashioned a woman, bringing her forward to meet the man in the quiet of the garden. And the man whispered, "At last, bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was drawn from man." This is why a man leaves his father and mother to cling to his wife, and they become one flesh. Back then they were both naked, yet they felt no shame. Now the serpent was far more cunning than any other beast the Lord God had created. He whispered to the woman, "Did God actually tell you not to eat from these trees?" "We may eat the fruit of these trees," she replied. "But regarding the tree at the very center, God warned us not to eat its fruit. We must not even touch it, or we will die." But the serpent hissed, "You certainly will not die. God knows that the moment you eat, your eyes will open. You will become like gods, knowing both good and evil." She saw the fruit was beautiful, tempting to eat, and promised deep wisdom. So she reached out, took it, and took a bite. She handed some to her husband, who stood right there, and he ate. Instantly their eyes flew open and they realized they were exposed. In sudden panic, they stitched fig leaves together to hide their bodies. In the cool evening breeze, they heard God walking nearby. Terrified, the man and his wife shrank away, hiding in the shadows of the forest. But the Lord God called out to him, "Where are you?" "I heard your footsteps," the man replied, "and I hid because I was naked and afraid." God asked, "Who told you that you were naked? Did you eat from the tree I strictly forbade you to touch?" The man deflected. "The woman you gave me. She handed me the fruit, so I ate." Turning to her, God demanded, "What is this you have done?" "The serpent deceived me," she wept, "and I ate." So the Lord God declared to the snake, "Because of this, you are cursed above all beasts. You will crawl on your belly and feed on the dust for the rest of your days. I will put bitter enmity between you and the woman. Her descendant will crush your head while you strike at his heel." To the woman he declared, "I will multiply your pain in childbearing. In agony you will bring forth new life. Your longing will be for your husband, yet he will dominate you." And to Adam he said, "Because you listened to your wife and ate from the forbidden tree of which I warned you, the ground is cursed because of you. Through hard toil you will struggle to feed yourself all your life. It will grow thorns and thistles, forcing you to eat the wild plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow you will earn your bread, until you return to the soil. For dust you are, and to dust you shall go. The man named his wife Eve, the mother of all living things. Gently God crafted garments of leather to clothe their newly felt shame. The Lord God murmured, "Behold, the human has become like one of us, deciding good and evil. We cannot let him reach out to the tree of life, eat of it, and live forever." So the Creator banished him from Eden, sending him to labor on the very soil from which he was born. He drove them out, posting cherubim and a flashing fiery sword to guard the tree of life. In the wild, Adam knew Eve, and she bore Cain. She cried, "With God's help I have brought forth a man." Soon after, she gave birth to his brother Abel. Abel watched over the flocks, while Cain tilled the ground. One season, Cain brought a harvest offering to present to the Lord, but Abel offered the choice, fatty portions from the firstborn of his sheep. The Lord looked kindly on Abel and his gift, but rejected Cain and his offering. Deep resentment consumed Cain, and his expression grew dark with a heavy, bitter anger. God asked Cain, "Why are you angry? Why are you downcast?" Is his struggle not our own story today? What if the oldest monsters are actually inside us? Do right and you are welcomed. Refuse, and a dark shadow lies crouching at your door. It hungers to master you, yet you must conquer it. Soon after, Cain whispered to his brother Abel, "Let us go out to the open field." Out in the quiet grass, resentment boiled over. Cain struck his brother down, spilling his blood. Then a quiet voice asked, "Where is your brother Abel?" "I do not know," he lied. "Am I my brother's keeper?" The voice cried out, "What have you done?" Listen closely. Your brother's blood screams to me from the very soil. You are now exiled from this earth, which opened its mouth to swallow his life from your own hands. Even if you sweat and toil, the earth will never feed you again. You are doomed to wander the earth, homeless and lost. Cain wept. "This penalty is too heavy for me to bear. You have cast me out from this soil, hiding your face from my eyes. I will drift aimlessly across the world, and the first stranger who spots me will end my life." But the Creator answered, "Absolutely not. If anyone strikes you down, they will suffer a sevenfold vengeance." Then a mysterious mark was set upon Cain, a warning to anyone who might try to take his life. Stranded in exile, Cain walked away from the divine presence to live in the wandering land of Nod. There his wife conceived and gave birth to a son named Enoch. In his fear, Cain built a fortress city, naming it after his child, Enoch. To Enoch was born Adri, the father of Mehujael. Mehujael fathered Methusael, and Methusael became the father of Lamech. Lamech took two wives, Ada and Zillah. Ada gave birth to Jabal, the ancestor of nomadic people who live in tents and herd their livestock. His brother was named Jubil, the father of every musician who plays the stringed harp and the wooden pipe. Zillah gave birth to Tubal-Cain, a craftsman who forged tools of bronze and iron. His sister was named Naamah. One evening, Lamech boasted to his wives Ada and Zillah, commandingly telling them to listen closely to his voice. "I killed a man, just for bruising me, a boy for striking me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times." Back in Eden's shadow, Adam embraced his wife again. She bore a son named Seth, declaring, "God has granted me another seed to replace murdered Abel." Seth also fathered a son and named him Enosh. It was during those dark days that humanity first began to pray to the Lord. This is the ancient scroll of Adam's descendants. When the Creator formed mankind, he shaped them in his own divine likeness. Making them male and female, he blessed them. He simply named them mankind on the very day they were created. When Adam reached 130 years of age, he fathered a son in his own image, naming him Seth. After Seth's birth, Adam lived 800 more years raising a family. He lived 930 years before he died. At 105, Seth fathered Enosh. After his birth, Seth lived 87 more years, raising many other sons and daughters. In total, Seth lived 912 years and died. When Enosh reached 90, he fathered Kenan. Following this, Enosh lived 815 years, raising many more sons and daughters. Enosh lived 95 years before passing away. When Kenan turned 70, his son Mahalalel was born into the world. After Mahalalel's birth, Kenan lived 840 years, raising a large family of children. Kenan lived 910 years total, then died. At 65, Mahalalel fathered a son named Jared. Following Jared's birth, Mahalalel lived 830 years, fathering other sons and daughters. Mahalalel lived 895 years and died. At 162, Jared fathered Enoch. After Enoch was born, Jared lived 800 more years with his family. He lived 962 years and died. When Enoch reached 65, he fathered a son named Methuselah. After Methuselah's birth, Enoch walked closely with God for 300 years. In total, Enoch lived 365 years. Enoch walked so closely with the Creator that he suddenly vanished, taken by God. At 187, Methuselah fathered Lamech. Following Lamech's birth, Methuselah lived 782 years, raising more sons and daughters. Methuselah lived 969 years before he died. At 182, Lamech had a son. He named him Noah, saying, "This boy will bring us relief from our painful toil on the ground, cursed by the Lord." Following Noah's birth, Lamech lived 595 years, fathering other children. Lamech lived 777 years before passing. When Noah was 500, he fathered Shem, Ham, and Japheth. As human populations began to spread across the face of the earth, and beautiful daughters were born, the sons of God saw their grace and married whoever they chose. Then the Lord warned, "My breath of life will not remain in man forever, because they are only mortal flesh. Man will live 120 years. The giant Nephilim walked the earth then, born from the blending of heaven and earth, an ancient mirror reflecting our own modern struggle to balance the human and divine." Why does an ancient warning about giants and human darkness feel so hauntingly familiar today? In those distant days, the corruption of human thought ran absolute, staining every corner of the earth. The Creator felt a profound grief, an aching regret that he had ever breathed life into clay. And in the silence, he spoke, "I will erase this entire creation from the dust, every human, every beast, and every bird of the sky, for it breaks my heart that I ever gave them life." Yet one man stood apart. Noah found grace in the dark. This is his story. He was a quiet soul, untouched by the chaos of his generation, walking closely with the divine. He raised 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. But outside his home, the world had rotted. Violence ruled the streets, and humanity had completely broken its inner compass, turning entirely to ruin. So God warned him, saying, "The end of all flesh has come before me. The world is choking on its own cruelty. I will sweep them away with the earth itself. Build a sanctuary, a vessel of durable cypress wood. Divide it into chambers, sealing every crack inside and out with black tar. Construct it exactly like this. It must measure 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. Leave an 18-inch opening at the top. Set a single door in its side and construct 3 decks within. For I am about to bring devastating waters to destroy everything under the sky. Every creature with the spark of life will be lost. Everything on this soil will die. But with you I will make a sacred promise. You will step into the vessel, you, your wife, your sons, and their wives. Bring 2 of every living creature, male and female, into the safety of the vessel to preserve their lives. Pairs of every bird, every wild animal, and every creeping thing will come to you seeking survival. Gather every type of food imaginable, storing it deep within the hold to sustain both your family and the beasts." Noah obeyed, doing exactly what was asked. Then the Creator called to him, "Enter the vessel with your family, for only you carry the light of justice. Gather 7 pairs of every clean animal for this journey, each male with its mate, and 1 pair of those deemed unclean, a male and its mate, and 7 pairs of every bird, male and female, to keep their lineages alive across the globe. For in 7 days I will unleash rain for 40 days and 40 nights. I will completely wash away every living creature I have formed from this ground." Noah followed every single instruction. He was 600 years old when the waters of the deep began to rise. Together, Noah, his sons, his wife, and his daughters-in-law crossed the threshold to escape the oncoming deluge. Clean and unclean beasts, birds of the sky, and every creature crawling along the soil, male and female, marched toward the sanctuary as commanded. And as the 7 days passed, the dark waters broke over the land. In the 600th year of his life, on the 17th day of the 2nd month, on that fateful day, the ancient foundations of the deep ruptured, the heavy gates of heaven opened, and relentless rain fell for 40 days and 40 nights. On that exact day, Noah, his sons Shem, Ham, and Japheth, his wife, and their 3 wives, finally went inside. They brought every wild beast and every domestic animal matching them according to their own kinds, along with every small creature crawling across the earth, and every winged bird of the air. Pairs of all breathing life forms came forward seeking shelter inside the towering wooden walls of safety. They entered as pairs, male and female, of every living creature, just as commanded. And then the Creator closed the heavy door. For 40 days, the deluge relentlessly hammered the soil. As the dark waters swelled, they lifted the heavy vessel high above the ground. The torrents rose higher and higher, and the silent sanctuary began to drift upon the endless, featureless tide. The floods surged so violently that even the highest mountains were completely submerged, buried under more than 20 feet of deep water. Every single living thing crawling on the earth perished. Birds, livestock, wild beasts, every creeping thing, and all of humanity. Every breathing soul upon the dry ground was lost to the silent depths. The entire surface of the world was washed clean of life. Humans, wild beasts, small creeping things, and birds of the air were erased. Only Noah remained, suspended in the dark, with those who shared his refuge. The floodwaters dominated the globe for 150 days. But then the divine remembered Noah and all the captive beasts within. A quiet, powerful wind began to blow, and the great waters slowly receded. The subterranean fountains and the open floodgates of heaven finally closed, silencing the downpour. Steadily, the vast, heavy water began to drain back into the earth. After 150 days, the tide subsided. On the 17th day of the 7th month, the vessel came to rest on Mount Ararat. As the tide fell, the mountaintops finally emerged on the 1st day of the 10th month, showing us that hope always rises after the flood. What survived 40 days? Noah opened a small wooden window he had carved and released a solitary raven. It flew back and forth, searching for life across a vast, silent ocean. Next, he sent a gentle dove to find any trace of dry ground. But the weary bird found nowhere to rest its wings, as deep floodwaters still covered the entire world. So it returned to the floating sanctuary. Noah reached out, gently pulled the bird back into safety, and waited 7 more days. Then he released the dove back into the empty sky. At twilight, the dove returned. Held tightly in its beak was a freshly plucked green olive leaf. Noah knew the deep flood was finally ending. He waited 7 more days and sent the bird out once more, but this time it did not return. By the 1st day of the 1st month of his 601st year, the dark waters had evaporated. Noah pulled back the heavy cover of the vessel, staring out at a quiet, dry world. By the 27th day of the 2nd month, the ground was solid. A voice called out to Noah, telling him and his family to finally step outside. Release every living soul trapped inside with you, the birds in the rafters, the beasts, and everything crawling upon the soil, so they can reclaim the land, multiply, and fill this silent new world. Noah stepped out, followed closely by his wife, his sons, and their wives. Every wild beast, every crawling creature, and every bird left the dark ark behind. Every living thing emerged species by species. To mark this terrifying new beginning, Noah built a stone altar, offering a sacred sacrifice from the clean beasts to the Lord. The Creator breathed in the scent of the sacrifice, promising in silence never to curse the soil again because of humanity. Though the human heart is fractured and prone to dark desires from youth, I will never repeat this total destruction. For as long as earth remains, planting and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall never cease. The Creator blessed the survivors, commanding them to heal, multiply, and fill the wide earth. Now a deep fear of humanity will fall upon every beast of the wild field, every bird in the sky, every creeping insect, and the dark fish of the deep ocean. They are placed in your power. Every moving, breathing creature is now your food. Just as I once gave you green plants, I now hand you everything. Yet you must never eat meat with its lifeblood inside. For your own blood, I will hold you strictly accountable. I will demand a reckoning from every beast and from every person. I will demand justice for the life of their neighbor. Whoever spills human blood will have their own blood spilled by human hands, because humanity was created in the divine image. Now go forth, multiply, cover the earth, and claim your place upon it. Then a promise was spoken to Noah and his family. I am binding myself to you and to all your descendants, and with every living creature that survived with you, including the birds, the animals of the field, and the wild beasts that stepped off the vessel. I make this solemn treaty with all of the creation. Never again will a great flood wash away all life. Never again will the waters rise to destroy the earth. And the Creator said, "This is the lasting symbol of our contract, a promise between myself, you, and every living soul for generations to come. I have painted a rainbow in the dark clouds. It will stand as a sign of this treaty with the world. When storm clouds gather and the bow arches across the sky, I will look upon it and remember my promise to you and to all flesh. Never again will raging waters rise to drown out all existence. When the bright colors split the storm, I will look at it, recalling the eternal pact made between the divine and every breathing thing on this ground. This is the sacred seal of my promise to all life," God told Noah. And the 3 sons who stepped out of that wooden vessel were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan, and these 3 fathered the future. From their bloodlines, the human race spread across the wide globe. Then Noah, a tiller of soil, began to plant a vineyard. He drank from his own harvest, fell into a deep stupor, and lay exposed inside his tent. Ham saw his father naked and ran outside to whisper it to his brothers. But Shem and Japheth quietly took a heavy robe and laid it over their shoulders. They walked backward into the dark tent, turning their eyes away so they would never witness their father fallen and exposed. When Noah sobered up and discovered what his son had done in the dark, he cried out, "Cursed be Canaan, the lowest servant shall he be to his brothers." He continued, "Blessed be the Creator, the God of Shem. Let Canaan serve Shem. May Japheth expand and share those tents as the ancient cycles of shame and survival begin anew." Why do we flee the shadows of our past? Noah survived the deluge, living 950 years before finally passing. This is the silent lineage of his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, who birthed a new humanity from the ashes. From Japheth came Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Taras. Gomer's descendants included Ashkenaz, Rephath, and Togarmah. Javan's line became Elisha Tarshish and the mysterious Kittites and Rodanites. These coastal clans, scattered across unknown shores, divided by unique languages, each carrying an unspoken trauma of the deep. The sons of Ham were Cush, Mizrah, Put, and Canaan. Cush's line produced Saba, Havilah, Sapa, Rama, and Septica. From Rama came Sheba and Dedan. Cush then fathered Nimrod, who rose as the first sovereign conqueror on earth, a legendary, defiant hunter in the eyes of his creator. His name became a whisper, an ancient proverb. Like Nimrod, a fearless hunter defying the heavens. His empire anchored itself in the plain of Shinar, founding Babylon, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh. He marched into Assyria, building Nineveh, Rehoboth-ir, Calah, and Resen, the massive city bridging the gap between Nineveh and Calah. Misraim fathered the Ludites, Anamites, Leabites, Naphtahim, Pathrasim, and the Cashlahim, the ancestors of the Philistines, along with the Caphtorim. Canaan fathered Sidon, his firstborn, and became the ancestor of the powerful Hittites, the Jebusites, Amorites, Girgashites, Hivites, Arkites, Sinites, Arvadites, Zemarites, and Hamathites. Soon these Canaanite tribes drifted apart. Canaan's borders stretched from Sidon toward Gerar, reaching Gaza and heading toward the dark valleys of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboim, extending to Lasha. These were Ham's descendants grouped by clans, languages, territories, and sovereign nations. Shem, the older brother of Japheth, also fathered sons. He became the ancestor of all the children of Eber. Shem's sons were Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. Aram's lineage produced Uz, Hul, Gether, and Meshech. Arphaxad was the father of Shelah, and Shelah was the father of Eber. Eber had two sons, one named Peleg, because in his days the earth was divided. Peleg's brother was named Joktan. Joktan fathered Almodad, Sheleph, Hazarmaveth, Jerah, Hadoram, Uzal, Diklah, Obal, Abimael, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. These were all sons of Joktan. Their territory stretched from Mesha toward Sephar into the vast eastern hill country. These were the descendants of Shem, organized by clan, language, territory, and nation. These are the families of Noah's sons, branched by their genealogies. From these roots, new civilizations spread across the earth after the cataclysm. In those days, the entire world spoke a single tongue, sharing the same words. Journeying eastward, they discovered a fertile plain in Shinar and settled down. They told one another, "Come, let's mold bricks and fire them." They traded natural stone for man-made brick and mortar for dark tar. Then they declared, "Let us build a grand city with a monumental tower reaching into the heavens, so we can make a name for ourselves and avoid being scattered across the earth." But the Lord descended to inspect the growing city and the towering monument humanity was raising. The Lord warned, if they can do this as one people with one language, then absolutely nothing they set out to achieve will be out of their reach. Come, let us descend and fracture their speech, so they can no longer understand one another. Thus the Creator dispersed them across the globe, forcing them to abandon their grand construction. That place was named Babel, because there the Lord shattered human speech, and from that spot he scattered them across the face of the entire earth. This is the lineage of Shem. 2 years after the flood, at the age of 100, he fathered a son named Arphaxad. Following Arphaxad's birth, Shem lived another 500 years, fathering more sons and daughters. When Arphaxad had lived 35 years, he fathered Shelah. Afterward, he lived 403 more years, raising other sons and daughters. When Shelah had lived 30 years, he fathered Eber. Afterward, Shelah lived 403 more years, raising other sons and daughters. At 34 years of age, Eber fathered a son named Peleg. After Peleg was born, Eber lived 430 more years. When Peleg reached 30, he fathered a son named Reu. Following Reu's birth, Peleg lived 209 more years. When Reu reached 32, he fathered a son named Serug. After Serug was born, Reu lived 27 years and had other sons and daughters. When Serug was 30, he fathered Nahor. Following Nahor's birth, Serug lived 200 more years, fathering other sons and daughters. At 29, Nahor fathered Terah. After Terah's birth, Nahor lived 119 more years, raising other sons and daughters. When Terah reached 70, he fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran. This is the ancestral record of Terah. Terah fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Haran, in turn, became the father of Lot. Before his father Terah's eyes, Haran died in Ur of the Chaldeans. Abram and Nahor married, beginning a journey that mirrors our own search for home. Why does our search for identity begin with a forgotten family tree? Abram's wife was Sarai, and Nahor's wife was Milah, daughter of Haran, father of Milcah and Iscah. Sarai was barren, empty of life. Yet Terah gathered his son Abram, his grandson Lot of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, setting out to escape their past. She was the wife of his son Abram. Together they left Ur of the Chaldeans, bound for the land of Canaan. But when they reached Haran, they stopped and settled. Terah lived 205 years before dying in Haran. Then the Lord commanded Abram to leave his homeland, his relatives, and his father's house, to seek an unknown country. I will fashion you into a mighty nation and pour out my blessing. Your name will be great, and you will become a source of blessing. I will favor those who honor you, and whoever dares to curse you, I will curse. Through you, every family on earth will find grace. So Abram departed, obeying the divine word, and Lot journeyed alongside him. Abram was 75 years old when he finally walked away from Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all the wealth they had accumulated, and the souls they had gathered in Haran, traveling onward until they crossed into Canaan. Abram traversed the wilderness to the sacred oak of Moreh. Back then, the hostile Canaanites still occupied those ancient lands. The Lord appeared to Abram, promising to give this land to his future descendants. In response, he built a sacred altar to honor the divine presence. He pressed on toward the eastern hills of Bethel, pitching his tent between the sanctuary of Bethel and the ruins of Ai to the east. There he erected another altar calling upon the name of his God. Afterward, Abram journeyed onward, descending deeper into the arid Negev. Soon, a devastating famine gripped the land. To survive this crushing crisis, Abram fled south to seek temporary refuge in the empire of Egypt. Standing at the Egyptian border, fear took hold. He whispered to his wife Sarai, "I know how striking your beauty truly is. When the Egyptians notice you, they will claim you. They will kill me but keep you alive for themselves. Tell them you are my sister. Do this so they will treat me kindly for your sake, and my very life will be spared." Sure enough, when they entered Egypt, the local men instantly noticed that Sarai possessed an extraordinary haunting beauty. When the royal court laid eyes on her, they praised her beauty to Pharaoh himself, and she was quickly escorted into his palace. The king showered Abram with riches for her sake. Soon he acquired vast herds of livestock, male and female servants, and lines of camels. Yet divine plagues began ravaging Pharaoh and his entire court because of Sarai. Terrified, the ruler summoned Abram to demand answers. "What have you brought upon me?" the king demanded. "Why hide that she was your wife? Why claim she was your sister, leading me to take her? Take your wife right now, gather her, and get out." Pharaoh ordered his soldiers to expel Abram immediately. They escorted him out of the empire with his wife and all his belongings, sending him back toward the dry Negev desert. Lot followed closely. By now, Abram had accumulated immense wealth, heavy with livestock, shimmering silver and gold. Wandering through the Negev, he returned to the sacred highlands of Bethel. He returned to the very spot between Bethel and Ai, where his tent and altar first stood. Once again, Abram called aloud on the name of his Lord. Lot, traveling with Abram, also possessed his own massive flocks, herds, and sprawling encampments. But the surrounding pastures could no longer support both of them. Their combined wealth was simply too immense to coexist in one place. Bitter friction erupted between the herdsmen of Abram and those of Lot. With Canaanites and Perizzites watching from the hills, Abram warned Lot, "Let there be no conflict between us or our herdsmen. After all, we are family. The entire land lies open before you. Let us part ways peacefully. Choose your direction. If you journey to the left, I will take the right. If you go right, I will go left." Lot scanned the horizon and saw the fertile plains of the Jordan, lush and well-watered, like the lost Garden of Eden or Egypt near Zoar. This beautiful paradise existed before God obliterated Sodom and Gomorrah. Allured by wealth, Lot claimed the fertile Jordan plain for himself and headed east. The family fractured. Abram stayed in Canaan while Lot settled near the corrupt cities of the plain, pitching his tents close to Sodom, a place harboring deep wickedness. Then the Lord spoke to Abram. After Lot departed, God said, "Lift your eyes, gaze north, south, east, and west. Every valley you scan, I bequeath to you and your descendants forever. I will multiply your lineage like the dust of the earth. Only if someone could count every grain of soil could they count your heirs. Rise and walk through the length and breadth of this land, for it is yours." So Abram packed his tents and settled near the ancient oaks of Mamre at Hebron, building yet another sacred altar to honor his Lord. During those days, war loomed. Amraphel, king of Shinar, Ariosh, king of Elasar, Kadorama, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of Goim, marched against Beer of Sodom, Bilsha of Gomorrah, Shinab of Admah, Shamar of Zeboim, and the king of Baal, which is Zoar. A shadow of our own inner conflict. Why do we fight battles we cannot win? 5 kings gathered near the Salt Sea, enslaved to a tyrant for 12 years. But rebellion sparked in the 13th year. Soon Chedorlaomer and his allies marched to crush them, laying waste to ancient forgotten tribes in the valleys. They hunted down the Emites and the Hirites in the rugged hills of Seir, pushing them to the edge of the wilderness. Then the invaders swept back, heading toward the sacred spring of Kadesh. They conquered the entire territory of the Amalekites, crushing the Amorites who built their homes in the dusty palms of Hazazon Tamar. The desperate kings of Sodom and Gomorrah, along with the rulers of Admah and Zeboim, stepped out to fight. They drew up their battle lines in the valley of Siddim, ready to face the wrath of Chedorlaomer and Tidal, the king of nations. They faced Amraphel and Arioch, a brutal clash of empires. 4 kings against 5, but the valley was a minefield of sticky tar pits. As the defenders retreated, many fell to their deaths, while others scattered into the dark mountains. The victorious kings stripped the cities clean, stealing food, wealth, and survival itself before marching back to the east. Among the captives was Abram's nephew Lot. He had settled in Sodom, and now he paid the price. A single survivor escaped the carnage, bringing the dark news to Abram the Hebrew. Abram was living beneath the ancient oaks of Mamre, in quiet alliance with his local neighbors Eshcol and Aner. Learning of his nephew's capture, Abram gathered 318 trained men from his own household, pursuing the enemy as far as Dan. Under the cover of darkness, he launched a stealth attack, scattering the enemy army and chasing them north past Damascus. He rescued Lot, recovered every stolen possession, and brought back the captives, both the women and the children. As Abram returned in triumph, the humbled king of Sodom walked out to meet him in the valley of Shaveh, known as the King's Valley. Then a mysterious figure appeared. Melchizedek, king of Salem, offered bread and wine. This stranger was the priest of God Most High. He blessed him, saying, "May Abram be blessed by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth. Praise the supreme God who handed your enemies over to you." Abram gave him 1/10 of the spoils. Then the king of Sodom spoke, "Give me back my people, but keep the goods." But Abram refused, saying, "I have sworn a solemn oath to the Lord, the God Most High, the creator of heaven and earth, that I will take absolutely nothing from you, not even a thread or a sandal strap. So you can never say I made Abram rich. I want nothing but what my young men ate, and the share for my allies Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre. Let them take what they earned." Soon after, the voice of the Lord came to Abram in a profound vision. "Do not fear, Abram. I am your shield, your ultimate reward." But Abram cried out, "Sovereign Lord, what good are your rewards if I remain childless and my servant Eliezer inherits everything? You have given me no heir. A servant born in my house will inherit my legacy." But the Lord replied, "This servant will not inherit your life. A son of your own flesh and blood will be your heir." God led him outside into the cool night. "Look up. Count the stars if you can. That is how vast your family will be." And Abram trusted the Lord, who saw his faith as righteousness. He added, "I am the Lord who rescued you from Ur of the Chaldeans, to give you this land as your own." Yet Abram asked, "Sovereign Lord, how can I be certain that I will actually possess it?" The Lord answered, "Bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, with a dove and a pigeon." Abram brought them, split the animals down the middle, and laid the halves opposite each other, though he left the birds whole. Vultures swooped down on the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. As the sun set, a deep, heavy sleep and a terrifying darkness fell upon him. In the dark, God spoke to him. "Know this for sure. Your family will live as strangers in a foreign land. They will be enslaved and mistreated for 400 years. But I will bring judgment on their oppressors, and they will eventually escape with great wealth. As for you, you will join your ancestors in peace and be buried at a ripe old age. In the 4th generation, your descendants will return here. For the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its peak." Once total darkness fell. A smoking firepot and a blazing torch appeared, drifting between the severed halves of the animals. On that night, the Lord sealed his covenant with Abram, promising his offspring the land from the river of Egypt to the Euphrates, the lands of the Hittites and Perizzites. But Abram's wife Sarai remained barren. Like so many of us facing silence, she looked to her Egyptian servant Hagar for an answer. "What happens when we try to force a divine promise?" Sarai told Abram. "God kept me barren. Take my maidservant. Maybe I can build a legacy through her." Abram quietly agreed to her plan. After 10 long years in Canaan, Sarai took Hagar, her Egyptian maidservant, and gave her to her husband as a second wife. He slept with Hagar, and she conceived. But knowing she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. Sarai then cried out to Abram, "This deep injustice is your fault. I placed my servant in your embrace, yet now she conceives and looks down on me with contempt. May God judge between us." Abram replied coldly, "She is your servant. Do with her as you please." Sarai then mistreated her until Hagar could bear no more, fleeing deep into the harsh wilderness. A divine messenger found Hagar by a quiet spring in the wasteland on the lonely road to Shur. He asked Hagar, Sarai's servant, "Where have you come from, and where are you going?" She replied, "I am fleeing from my harsh mistress." The messenger commanded her, "Go back to your mistress, submit to her authority, and face your trial." Then he promised, "I will multiply your offspring until they are too vast for any man to count." The divine messenger spoke again, "You are with child, and will bear a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has surely heard your deep misery. He will live like a wild stallion. His hand will oppose everyone, and all hands will oppose him, dwelling in constant tension with his brothers." Astonished, she gave a name to the Lord who spoke to her, calling him the God who sees me. For she wondered, "Have I truly seen the one who watches over me?" Thus the well was named Bir Lau. It remains there today between Kadesh and Bered. Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram named the child Ishmael, just as she was told. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore him Ishmael. When he reached 99 years of age, the Lord appeared, saying, "I am God Almighty. Walk faithfully before me, and be blameless. I will seal my sacred covenant with you, multiplying your descendants beyond measure." Overwhelmed, Abram fell face down in the dust, and God spoke to him, saying, "This is my covenant with you. You will become the father of many nations. No longer will you be called Abram. Your new name is Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations. I will make you incredibly fruitful, and from your bloodline, kings and empires will rise. I will establish my covenant as an everlasting bond between me and you and your descendants for generations to come, to be your God and the God of your offspring. The entire land of Canaan, where you now live as a stranger, I give to you and your offspring as an eternal home. I will always be their God." Then God commanded Abraham, "As for you, you must keep this sacred covenant, you and your descendants for generations to come. This is the promise you and your offspring must hold dear, the covenant you are bound to keep. Every male among you must be circumcised. This physical mark will serve as the sacred sign of the covenant between us for all future generations. Every male child of 8 days must be circumcised. This includes those born under your roof or bought from foreigners. Whether related by blood or purchased with your silver, they must bear this mark of belonging. This physical covenant in your flesh will be an eternal promise. Any uncircumcised male who does not bear this mark will be cast out and exiled from his people, for he has broken my covenant." God then told Abraham, "As for your wife, you will no longer call her Sarai. Her new name is Sarah. I will bless her deeply and give you a son through her. I will crown her as the mother of entire nations. Kings of vast empires will descend from her." Abraham fell face down. He laughed silently to himself, wondering, "Can a son be born to a man of 100 years? Will Sarah give birth at 90? He then pleaded, "If only Ishmael could live under your blessing." God replied, "Yes, but your wife Sarah will indeed bear you a son, and you will name him Isaac. I will establish my eternal covenant with him, passing it down to all his descendants. As for Ishmael, I have heard your prayer. I will bless him, making him fruitful and multiplying his offspring greatly. He will father 12 powerful rulers, and I will shape him into a great nation. But I will establish my covenant with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you by this very season next year." When he finished speaking, God ascended. On that very day, Abraham took his son Ishmael and every male in his household, including servants born there or bought, and circumcised them, just as God commanded. Abraham was 99 years old when he underwent circumcision. His son Ishmael was 13. Both father and son entered this covenant together on that exact day. Every male in Abraham's household, whether born to his house or bought from foreigners, was circumcised with him. Later, the Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre, as he sat in the shade of his tent during the midday heat. Who were the three mysterious figures Abraham suddenly saw standing before him? Recognizing an ancient, sacred presence, he rushed from his tent to bow low to the dust. He pleaded, "If I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, do not pass your servant by. Permit me to bring water to wash your feet, so you may rest beneath the shade of this ancient tree. Let me prepare food to nourish your spirits before you journey onward, now that you have honored your servant with your presence." "Do as you have said," they replied. Abraham quickly retreated into the shadows of the tent to find Sarah. "Hurry," he urged. "Take 3 measures of fine flour, knead it, and bake bread." Then he ran to the herd to choose their finest offering. He gave the young calf to a servant, who hurried to prepare it, then brought curds, rich milk, and the roasted meat, placing the sacred meal before them. As they ate, he waited silently under the tree. Suddenly they asked him, "Where is your wife Sarah?" "She is inside the tent," he replied. Then the Lord declared, "I will surely return to you next year, and Sarah your wife will bear a son." Behind them at the dark entrance of the tent, Sarah stood listening to every word. Both Abraham and Sarah were advanced in years, and she was long past the age of bearing new life. So Sarah laughed in disbelief, a silent defense against hope. "After I am worn out and my husband is old, will I truly experience such joy?" Then the Lord asked Abraham, why did Sarah laugh, and asked if she could truly bear a child in her old age. "Is anything too difficult for the Lord? I will return at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son." Overcome by fear, she hid behind a lie, saying, "I did not laugh." But he looked past her armor, replying, "Yes, you did laugh." When the men rose to leave, they gazed down toward Sodom, and Abraham walked alongside to send them on their journey. Then the Lord said, "Should I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? He will surely become a great, mighty nation, and all the earth will be blessed through him. I have chosen him to guide his children and his household, to keep the way of the Lord, by doing what is right and just. In this way the Lord will fulfill every promise he made to Abraham." Then the Lord spoke. "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is deafening, and their sins are incredibly heavy. I will go down to see if their actions match the dark reports reaching me. If not, I will know." The men then turned toward Sodom, but Abraham remained standing there in the presence of the Lord. Abraham drew closer, asking, "Will you destroy the innocent along with the guilty? What if there are 50 righteous people left in the city? Will you really sweep it away? Or will you spare the entire place for the sake of those 50 righteous souls? Far be it from you to treat the innocent and the guilty the same, collapsing the moral order of our world. Far be it from you. Should not the judge of all the earth act justly?" The Lord replied, "If I find 50 righteous people in Sodom, I will spare the entire city for their sake." Confronting his own insignificance, Abraham spoke up once more. "Though I am but dust and ashes, I have dared to ask, what if there are 5 fewer than 50 righteous souls? Will you destroy the entire city because of just 5? The Lord replied, "If I find 45 there, I will not destroy it." Once more Abraham pleaded, "What if only 40 are found?" He answered, "For the sake of those 40, I will not destroy it." Then he begged, "Please do not be angry, Lord. Let me speak. What if only 30 can be found there?" He answered, "I will not destroy it if I find 30 there." Abraham spoke again, "Since I have been so bold, what if only 20 are found?" He replied, "For the sake of those 20, I will not destroy it." Finally, Abraham pleaded, "Please do not be angry, but let me speak just once more. What if only 10 are found?" He answered, "For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it." When the divine presence departed, Abraham was left alone with his thoughts, returning slowly to his quiet home. By evening, the 2 angels reached Sodom, finding Lot sitting at the gateway of the city. As soon as he saw them, he rose to meet them, bowing with his face to the ground. "My lords," he said, "please come stay at your servant's house. You can wash your feet and spend the night here, then resume your journey early in the morning." "No," they replied, "we will stay in the open square." But he insisted so strongly that they relented and entered his home. He prepared a meal for them, baking unleavened bread, and they ate together. Before they could sleep, the men of Sodom, young and old, from every corner of the city surrounded the house. They shouted to Lot, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so we can satisfy our desires with them." Lot stepped outside, shutting the door on his own fear. "No, my friends," he pleaded. "Do not do this evil thing. I have daughters who have never known a man." "Let me offer them instead," he bargained. "Do what you wish to them, but do not touch these men who found safety under my roof." "Get out of our way!" They roared, an ancient echo of the shadow within us all. They screamed back, "This outsider dares to sit in judgment over us. We will make you suffer far worse than them." The mob surged forward, throwing themselves against the door to break it down. But the mysterious guests pulled Lot inside, slamming the heavy wooden doors shut. And then they struck the violent men crowded at the threshold, blinding everyone, young and old, until they groped in the dark. The visitors turned to Lot, asking who else he had there, sons, daughters, or family in this doomed city. "Get them out now, because we are here to destroy this entire place. The silent screams of this city have risen to the heavens, and we are sent to burn it down." So Lot slipped out into the shadows to warn the men betrothed to his young daughters. He pleaded, "Run! Get out now! Divine judgment is falling on this city!" But they just laughed, thinking it was all a joke. As the first cold light of dawn broke, the angels urged him, saying, "Hurry! Take your wife and your 2 daughters immediately, or you will perish in the fires of this city's execution." Paralyzed by fear and attachment, Lot hesitated. Yet the messengers seized their hands forcefully, pulling them from their self-destructive comfort, granting a mercy they could not earn. Once they stood in the open wild, a voice commanded them, "Run for your lives! Do not look back, and do not stop in the valley. Escape to the high mountains, or die." But Lot begged, "No, my lords, please, not there. You have shown your servant incredible grace, and saved my life from the coming wrath. But I cannot survive in those wild peaks. The disaster will catch me, and I will die. Look, there is a tiny village close enough to reach. Let me escape there instead. It is harmless, is it not? Let my soul live there." The messenger replied, "Very well, I will grant this small mercy and spare that little town. But run, do not waste time, for I cannot strike until you are safe inside." And so the place was named Zoar. Just as Lot entered its borders, the morning sun rose over the land. Then the sky split open, raining fire and burning sulfur upon Sodom and Gomorrah from above. A total obliteration of the valley, wiping out every living soul, every house, and even the green grass of the earth. But Lot's wife looked back, clinging to her past, and froze into a pillar of salt. At dawn, Abraham climbed back to the quiet ridge where he had stood before the Lord. Staring out across the vast valley, he watched thick black smoke billowing into the sky like the fumes of a giant burning furnace. Yet in the middle of this ruin, God remembered Abraham's prayer, rescuing Lot from the ashes of the cities he once called home. Leaving Zoar, Lot and his daughters fled to the mountains, too terrified to remain in Zoar any longer. They took refuge in the dark cold of a mountain cave. One evening, the older sister whispered, "Our father is aging, and there is not a single man left in this wasteland to continue our lineage. We must make him drink, then lie with him, taking destiny into our hands to save our dying line." They got him drunk that night, and the eldest sister lay with him. In his drunken stupor, he knew nothing of her coming or going. The next morning, she told her sister, "I did what had to be done last night. We will make him drink again tonight, and then it is your turn to go in, so we can save our family line." And so they plied him with wine once more, and the younger daughter went to his bed. Once again, he was entirely oblivious. In the shadow of that cave, both sisters conceived children by their own father. The firstborn gave birth to a son named Moab, whose descendants would become today's Moabites. The younger daughter also bore a son named Ben-Ami, the ancestor of today's Ammonites. Meanwhile, Abraham journeyed south into the harsh Negev wilderness, setting up camp between Kadesh and Shur, eventually settling in Gerar. Fearful for his life, Abraham claimed his wife Sarah was his sister. Hearing this, Amalek, the king of Gerar, claimed her for himself. But in the deep silence of the night, God warned Amalek in a dream, "You are a dead man because of this woman. She belongs to another. Fortunately, Ahimelech had not yet touched her. He pleaded, Lord, would you destroy an innocent man? They both told me they were brother and sister. I had no idea. My conscience is clear, and my hands are innocent of this transgression. And God answered in the dream, I know your heart was pure. That is exactly why I intervened, shielding you from committing a grave sin against me. I held you back. Now return her to him. He is a prophet, and his prayers will save your life. Do this, and you will survive. But refuse, and rest assured you and everyone you love will perish. Terrified, Ahimelech woke at dawn and gathered all his court. When he shared the terrifying warning, fear gripped every heart in the room. Why do we sabotage those who welcome us? Ahimelech summoned Abraham, demanding to know what crime justified dragging an entire innocent kingdom into such a dark, consuming guilt. You have crossed lines that should never be crossed, the king declared. Tell me, what is the dark fear driving you to do this? Abraham confessed his deepest psychological dread. He assumed this foreign land held no sacred boundary, believing they would murder him simply to possess his wife. To him, it was a half-truth. She was his sister through his father, though born of a different mother. Yet she was his wife. He recalled how when the divine voice sent him wandering far from home, he begged her to prove her loyalty through this deception. Wherever our exile takes us, tell everyone, I am only your brother. In response, Ahimelech offered sheep, cattle, and servants as a peace offering, restoring Sarah to her husband. Look upon my vast land, the king said. It lies open before you. Settle wherever you choose. Turning to Sarah, he announced a gift of 1,000 silver pieces to her brother. This payment clears your name before everyone he promised. Your honor and dignity are now fully restored. Abraham interceded in prayer, and a healing touch swept over Ahimelech, his wife, and his servants, unlocking their closed wombs once more. The divine presence had temporarily closed every womb in the palace, a spiritual warning triggered by the taking of Sarah. True to the ancient promise, the divine presence visited Sarah, keeping the sacred vow made to her so long ago. In the twilight of their lives, Sarah conceived, giving birth to a son at the exact moment destiny had ordained. He named the child Isaac, meaning laughter. 8 days later, the patriarch sealed the baby into the covenant, just as commanded. The old man had lived 100 years when this impossible child finally arrived. God has brought me joy, Sarah declared, and everyone will share my amazement. Who would have dared predict to my husband that a woman of my years would nurse a child? Yet here I am holding a son born in his twilight years. The boy grew, eventually being weaned. To mark this milestone, Abraham threw a massive celebration. But the joy shattered when Sarah saw the Egyptian slave's son mockingly jeer at her child. She turned to Abraham demanding, "Cast out that slave and her child," she insisted, "for he must never inherit alongside my Isaac." This cold demand tore at Abraham's heart, as it involved his own flesh and blood. Yet a voice broke through his inner turmoil, telling him not to grieve for the boy and the servant. Heed her words, for your true legacy flows through Isaac. Fear not, for I will also shape the slave son into a great people, because he carries your blood. At dawn, the patriarch prepared meager provisions, handing Hagar a small supply of bread and a single skin of water. He placed the heavy burden on her back, sending mother and child away. They vanished into the unforgiving burning sands of the Beersheba wilderness. When the water completely ran out, she laid her weakening child beneath the shade of a desert bush. Retreating a short distance away, she collapsed, unable to bear the agony of watching her child slip away. There in the silent wilderness, her desperate weeping began. But the cry of the innocent reached the heavens. A divine voice shattered the silence, asking her, "What troubles you, Hagar? Shed your terror. The divine has heard his suffering. Rise, lift the child and hold him close, for he is destined to father a powerful empire." Suddenly, her eyes were opened, revealing a hidden spring of water. She rushed to fill her leather container, reviving her dying son. Divine favor watched over the boy as he matured into a fierce hunter in the wild wastes. As he made his home in the rugged desert of Pan, his mother secured a bride for him from Egypt. Ahimelech and Phil, the commander of his forces, approached Abraham, declaring that a higher power guided everything he did. Swear a sacred oath to me now that you will never betray me, my children, or my future lineage. Treat this land where you reside as a foreigner, with the same loyalty I extended to you. Abraham solemnly replied, I swear it. Yet Abraham confronted the king over a vital well that royal servants had violently seized. Amalek protested, claiming total ignorance of the crime. You never brought this to my attention, and I only learned of it today. Abraham then presented him with livestock as a gesture of peace. They forged a formal covenant, during which Abraham separated 7 female lambs from the rest of his flock. Amalek questioned him, wondering about the significance of setting these 7 young lambs aside. These 7 lambs are my witness, Abraham answered, proving once and for all that I dug this precious well. Hence the place was named Beersheba, to mark the solemn covenant they swore. With the treaty concluded, Amalek and his military commander Phol departed, journeying back to the ancient lands of the Philistines. Abraham planted a sacred tamarisk tree in Beersheba, worshipping and invoking the name of the Lord, the everlasting Creator. The old traveler remained an exile in the Philistine territory for many years. Years passed, and the ultimate spiritual test arrived. The divine called Abraham, and he answered, Here I am. Take your son, the voice commanded, your only son Isaac, whom you deeply love, and journey to the heights of Moriah. Offer him there as a sacrifice on the mountain I will reveal to you. Before dawn, facing his deepest internal dread, Abraham rose and saddled his donkey. What if the oldest stories in the Bible are actually mirrors of our own psychological survival? Abraham took 2 servants and his son Isaac, carrying the wood of sacrifice to a mysterious destination. On the 3rd day of dread, Abraham looked up, seeing his grim destination in the distance. Wait here with the donkey, he instructed his servants. The boy and I must go up to worship, and then we will return. Abraham laid the heavy wood of the sacrifice directly onto the shoulders of his young son Isaac. In his own hands, the father carried the burning coals and the slaughtering knife. Walking into the unknown, Isaac finally broke the heavy silence. Father. Yes, my son, I am here. We have the fire and the wood, the boy observed. But where is the lamb for the sacrifice? Abraham softly replied, God himself will provide the lamb for the offering, my son. And so they continued walking together into the silence. Reaching the summit, Abraham slowly built a stone altar and arranged the wood. He then bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the timber. Raising the cold blade, he prepared to slay his son. But a voice from the heavens shattered the silence, calling his name. Abraham, Abraham. Here I am, he gasped. Do not lay a hand on the boy, the messenger commanded. Do not harm him. Now I see your deep reverence, because you did not hold back your beloved son, your only son, from me. Lifting his eyes, Abraham noticed a ram caught by its horns in a nearby thicket. He freed the ram and offered it on the altar as a sacrifice in place of his son. Abraham named that sacred site, The Lord Will Provide. To this day we say, On the mountain of the Lord provision is found. Then the messenger called out a second time, saying, I swear by myself, declares the Lord, because you have done this and did not withhold your only son, I will bless you abundantly, multiplying your offspring like the stars in the cosmos and the sand on the shores. Your descendants will conquer the gates of their enemies, and through them every nation on earth shall be blessed, because you listened to my voice. Descending the peak, Abraham returned to his servants, and they journeyed back together toward Beersheba. Abraham settled in Beersheba. Sometime later, news arrived that Milcah had also given birth to children. She bore several sons to Abraham's brother Nahor, Uz the firstborn, and Buz his brother, Kemuel, the father of Aram Kesed, Hazo Pildash Jidlaph, and Bethuel, who fathered Rebekah. Milcah bore these 8 sons to Nahor. His concubine, Rumah, also bore him sons, Teba, Gaham, Tahash, and Maacah. Sarah lived to be 127 years old, eventually dying in Hebron in the ancient land of Canaan. Abraham wept deeply for Sarah, mourning his loss. Then rising from her side, he went to negotiate with the Hittites. He told them, I am a foreigner living among you. Sell me some property for a grave so I can bury my dead. They replied, Listen to us, my lord. You are an honored prince here, Bury your beloved dead in the very best of our tombs. No one among us will deny you a tomb to bury your dead." Then Abraham stood up and bowed low before the local Hittites. He said to them, "If you are truly willing to let me bury her here, then please speak to Ephron, son of Zohar, on my behalf. Ask him to sell me the cave of Machpelah, situated at the end of his field. Ask him to sell it to me for the full, fair price, as a permanent burial plot in your presence." Ephron the Hittite was sitting there in the assembly, and he replied to Abraham in front of everyone gathered at the city gate. "No, my lord," he said, "listen to me. I will give you both the field and the cave inside it as a gift. I give it to you before my people. Go bury your dead." Once more Abraham bowed down before the citizens of the land. He spoke to Ephron in public. "Please hear me. I insist on paying the full price for the field. Accept it so I can bury her." Ephron replied to Abraham, "Listen to me, my lord. The land is worth 400 shekels of silver. But what is such a small amount between friends? Go bury your dead." Abraham agreed to the terms. In the presence of the Hittite witnesses, he weighed out the requested price, 400 shekels of silver, according to the standard currency of the local merchants. Thus, Ephron's field in Machpelah, near Mamre, including the field, the cave, and every single tree within its boundaries, was legally transferred to Abraham as his permanent property before all the witnesses at the city gate. Soon after Abraham laid his wife Sarah to rest in the cave of Machpelah near Mamre, located in Hebron within Canaan. Thus, the field and its cave were officially transferred to Abraham by the Hittites, securing his family's first sacred burial ground. Abraham was now advanced in years, yet the Lord had blessed him in all things. He spoke to his oldest servant, who managed everything he owned, saying, "Place your hand under my thigh. I want you to swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and earth, that you will not select a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I am currently living. Instead, return to my native land, back to my own people, and find a bride for my son Isaac." The servant asked him, "What if the woman refuses to leave her home and follow me to this land? Should I then take your son back to the country you left?" Abraham insisted, "Do not take my son back there." Abraham answered, "The Lord, the God of heaven, who called me from my father's house and my homeland, spoke to me, promising on oath to give my offspring this land as their home. He will send his angel ahead of you, guiding your steps to find a wife for my son there. If she is unwilling to come with you, you will be released from this vow. But under no circumstance should you ever take my son back there." So the servant placed his hand beneath the thigh of his master Abraham, sealing this solemn covenant between them. The servant took 10 of his master's camels, packed them with precious gifts, and departed on his quest. Traveling to Aram Naharaim, he reached the city of Nahor, resting his camels by the well just outside the city gates. As evening approached, the local women began arriving at the well to draw water. He prayed, "O Lord God of my master Abraham, grant me success today, and show faithful love to my master. I am standing here beside this spring as the young women of the town come out to draw water. If I say to one of them, 'Please lower your jar so I can drink,' and she responds, 'Drink, and I will water your camels too,' let her be the chosen bride for your servant Isaac. Through this sign I will know you have shown favor to my master." Even before his prayer was finished, Rebekah appeared with a water jar resting on her shoulder. She was the daughter of Bethuel, son of Milcah, and Abraham's brother Nahor. The young maiden was exceptionally beautiful, pure, and untouched by any man. Descending to the spring, she filled her heavy jar and climbed back up. The servant hurried forward to meet her and asked, "Please give me a little water from your jar." "Drink, my lord," she answered quickly, lowering the heavy jar to offer him a drink. Once he had quenched his thirst, she offered to draw water for his camels as well, until they have had enough to drink. She quickly emptied her jar into the trough, running back to the well repeatedly to draw water for all his camels. In absolute silence, the servant watched her intently, wondering if the Lord had truly granted him success on this journey. When the camels finished drinking, he presented her with a golden nose ring and 2 heavy gold bracelets weighing 10 shekels. Then he asked, "Whose daughter are you? Please tell me, is there room in your father's home for us to stay tonight?" She replied, "I am the daughter of Bethuel, whom Milcah bore to Nahor. We have plenty of straw and feed," she added, "along with room for you to spend the night." Overwhelmed, the man bowed low and worshipped the Lord. He prayed, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of my master Abraham. who has kept his faithful love and kindness alive. The Lord has guided my steps straight to the home of my master's relatives. Meanwhile, the girl ran back to tell her mother's household everything. Rebecca had a brother named Laban, who immediately rushed out to meet the stranger by the spring. As soon as he saw the gold nose ring and the bracelets on his sister's arms, and heard Rebecca describe what the man had said, Laban hurried out and found him standing beside his camels near the spring. "Come in, you who are blessed by the Lord," he urged. "Why do you stand outside? I have prepared the house and made room for your camels." So they entered the house and the camels were unloaded. Feed and straw were provided for them, while water was brought for the men to wash their feet. Food was set before him, but he declared, "I cannot eat until I have explained the purpose of my journey." Laban said, "Speak then." So he began. "I am Abraham's servant. The Lord has blessed my master abundantly, and he has become very wealthy. He has given him flocks and herds, silver and gold, male and female servants, along with camels and donkeys. My master's wife Sarah bore him a son in her old age, and he has inherited everything his father owns. My master made me swear a solemn oath, saying, 'You must not choose a bride for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, in whose land I now reside. Instead, you must go to my father's house and to my own clan to secure a wife for him.' But I asked my master, 'What if the woman refuses to return with me?' He answered, 'The Lord before whom I walk will send his angel to guide you, ensuring your journey succeeds so you can find a wife for my son from my ancestral home. Once you reach my relatives, you are free from this vow. Even if they refuse to send her with you, you will be completely released from your oath.' So when I arrived at the spring today, I prayed, 'O Lord, God of my master Abraham, if you would only grant success to this journey of mine. See, I am standing here beside the spring, when a young woman comes out to draw water, and I ask her for a simple sip from her jar. And if she answers, "Drink, and I will water your camels too," let her be the one destined for my master's son." Before I even finished praying in my heart, Rebecca appeared carrying her jar. She walked down to the spring for water. When I asked her for a drink, she quickly lowered the jar from her shoulder and said, "Drink, and your camels may drink too." So I drank, and she quenched the camel's thirst too. I asked whose daughter she was, and she replied, "The daughter of Bethuel son of Nahor, whom Milcah bore to him." Then I placed the ring on her nose and the bracelets on her arms, bowing down to worship the Lord. I praised the God of my master Abraham, who guided me on the true path to find this bride for his son. Now tell me if you will show true kindness to my master. If not, say so, that I may know my next step." Laban and Bethuel answered, "This is from the Lord. We cannot oppose it. Here is Rebekah before you. Take her, and go let her become the wife of your master's son, just as the Lord has spoken." Hearing their words, Abraham's servant fell to the earth, bowing low before the Lord. He brought out precious gold and silver jewelry, along with fine garments for Rebekah, giving costly treasures to her mother and brother too. Then he and his companions ate and drank, finding rest for the night in that place. Rising the next morning, he said, "Send me back to my master." But her mother and brother pleaded, "Let the girl stay with us just 10 days longer. After that, you may leave." But he insisted, "Do not delay me now that the Lord has made my mission successful. Send me on my way back to my master." So they proposed, "Let us call the girl and ask for her decision." They called Rebekah and asked her, "Will you go with this man?" And she answered simply, "I will go." So they sent their sister Rebekah on her journey, accompanied by her nurse Abraham's servant and his men. They blessed Rebekah, saying, "Our sister, may you increase to thousands upon thousands. May your descendants conquer the gates of their enemies." Then Rebekah and her maids mounted their camels, following the servant into the unknown. So the servant departed with Rebekah. Meanwhile, Isaac had returned from Beer-Lahai, for he dwelt in the dry country of the Negev. He walked out into the fields at twilight to meditate, and lifting his eyes, he saw camels drawing near. Rebekah looked up and saw Isaac. Dismounting from her camel, she whispered to the servant, "Who is that man walking through the field to meet us?" "He is my master," the servant replied. So she took her veil and covered her face. The servant recounted his journey to Isaac. Then Isaac led Rebekah into the tent of his mother Sarah, taking her as his wife. He loved her deeply, and Isaac finally found comfort after his mother's passing. In his later years, Abraham married again, taking a wife named Seturah. She bore him Zeman, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. And Jokshan became the father of Sheba and Dedan. The descendants of Dedan became the Asherites, the Ledawites, and the Lumites. Midian's sons were Ephah, Epher, Hanok, Abida, and Eldah. All of these were descendants of Keturah. Yet Abraham left everything he owned to Isaac. But while he was still living, he gave gifts to the sons of his concubines, sending them away from Isaac eastward into the desert lands. In all, Abraham lived 175 years. He breathed his last, dying at a ripe old age, fulfilled, and was gathered to his ancestors. His sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah, near Mamre, in the field of Ephron, son of Zohar the Hittite. This was the land Abraham bought from the Hittites. There Abraham was laid to rest with his wife Sarah. After his death, God blessed Isaac, who settled near Berhi. This is the lineage of Ishmael, the son born to Abraham by Sarah's Egyptian maidservant, Hagar. These are the names of the sons of Ishmael recorded in the exact order of their birth. Nebaioth, the firstborn of Ishmael, followed by Kedar, Adil, Mibam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, and Tema, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedmar. These were the sons of Ishmael, and these are the 12 tribal rulers listed by their settlements and camps. Ishmael lived 137 years in total. Then he breathed his last and was gathered to his ancestors. His descendants settled from Havilah to Shur, near Egypt's border on the way to Ashur, living in constant conflict with all their kinsmen. This is the historical account of Abraham's son Isaac. Abraham was the father of Isaac, who was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean from Paddan Aram, and sister of Laban. Isaac pleaded with the Lord for his wife because she was barren. The Lord answered his prayer, and Rebekah conceived. But when the twins struggled within her, she cried out, "Why is this happening to me? What if the oldest war is the one raging inside you?" When Rebekah sought answers, she was told 2 rival nations are divided within your womb. One brother would overpower the other, the firstborn destined to serve the younger. When her labor began, the ancient prophecy unfolded. Twins were waiting to be born. First came a ruddy boy, his skin covered like a wild beast, named Esau. Immediately after his brother emerged, his tiny hand locked onto his brother's heel. They called him Jacob the Supplanter. Isaac was 60 years old when this generational split began. As they grew, Esau became a wild, skillful hunter of the wilderness, while Jacob remained quiet, observing life from the safety of the tents. Isaac favored the raw masculinity of Esau, but Rebekah saw something deeper in Jacob. One evening while Jacob boiled a red stew, Esau stumbled in from the wild, utterly exhausted. He begged, "Give me some of that red stuff. I am starving." For this they called him Edom. But the calculating Jacob demanded a price. "Sell me your birthright first." Esau shrugged. "I am close to death anyway. What use is a birthright?" Jacob insisted, "Swear to me now." So Esau swore his future away for a single meal. Jacob handed him the bread and the dark lentil stew. He ate, drank, and walked away, throwing his destiny aside. Meanwhile, a harsh famine struck the land, mirroring the crisis of Abraham's generation. Isaac sought out Abimelech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar. The divine presence warned him, "Do not flee to Egypt. Stay exactly where I command you to dwell. Reside in this land, and I will remain with you and bless you. To you and your offspring, I give these vast territories, fulfilling the solemn oath I swore to Abraham. I will multiply your family until they match the stars in the night sky, inheriting all these lands. Through your lineage, every nation on earth will find blessing because Abraham listened to my voice and walked in my ways, keeping my sacred laws." So Isaac settled in Gerar. When the locals questioned him about his beautiful wife, fear gripped his heart. He lied, saying she was his sister, terrified to admit the truth. He believed they would murder him just to take Rebekah, whose beauty was captivating. Months passed, until Abimelech looked out his palace window and witnessed Isaac showing intimate affection to Rebekah, revealing their true bond. Instantly, Abimelech confronted him. "She is clearly your wife. Why did you lie and say she was your sister?" Isaac admitted, "I feared I would lose my life because of her." Abimelech cried out, "What kind of trick have you played on us? Any man here might have taken her, and you would have brought massive guilt upon our entire nation." So the king issued a decree to his subjects. Anyone who harms this man or his wife will face execution. Isaac sowed seeds in that dry soil, and that very year harvested 100-fold, blessed by the divine. His influence expanded, and his wealth kept multiplying until he became an economic powerhouse. His massive flocks, herds, and estates sparked bitter jealousy among the local Philistines. In spite, they filled all of Abraham's historic wells with dirt. Finally, Abimelech ordered Isaac to pack up, saying, "You have grown far too powerful for us. You have completely outgrown us." So Isaac departed, pitching his tents in the deeper valley of Gerar to rebuild his life. He painstakingly reopened the ancient wells dug during his father Abraham's lifetime, which the Philistines had choked with dirt, restoring the exact names his father had originally given them. Digging deep into the valley floor, his servants struck a spring of flowing living water, but local shepherds fought them for it, claiming the water was theirs. So he named it Essek, the well of contention. They dug a second well, but another fierce conflict erupted. He named this one Sitnah, meaning opposition. Moving further away, they dug once more, and this time, peace prevailed. He named it Rehoboth, declaring at last, "The Lord has made room for us to thrive." From there he traveled up to Beersheba. In the dead of night the Lord spoke to him, saying, "I am the God of Abraham. Cast away your fear, for I am by your side. I will bless you and multiply your descendants for the sake of my servant Abraham." Right there, Isaac built an altar and called upon the name of the Lord. He set up his camp there, and his workers began digging another well. Soon after, Abimelech arrived from Gerar, bringing his trusted advisor Ahuzath and Phicol, the chief commander of his army. Isaac questioned them, "Why seek me out now after treating me as an enemy?" They replied, "We have seen proof that the Lord protects you. We realized there must be a solemn pact of peace between our people and yours. Swear a treaty that you will do us no harm, just as we let you leave in peace and sent you away with our blessing. Now you are truly blessed." Isaac threw a feast, and they broke bread. At dawn they swore a sacred oath, a reminder that peace is won only when we face our deepest fears. Isaac sent them on their way, and they departed into the quiet peace of the wild. That very day, Isaac's servants brought word of the deep well they had dug. "We have found water," they cried, and he named it Sheba. To this day, the ancient town bears that name, Beersheba. When Esau was 40, he took Hittite wives, Judith, daughter of Beri, and Basemath, daughter of Elon. Their presence brought constant grief to Isaac and Rebekah. As Isaac grew old, a physical darkness fell over him. His eyes failed, and he could no longer see. He called for Esau, his eldest son. "Here I am," the boy answered. Isaac whispered, "I am old now, and the day of my death remains a mystery. Take your hunting weapons, now your quiver and your bow. Go out into the wild, open country to capture game for me. Prepare the rich, savory meat I love, and bring it here. Let me eat so my soul may bless you before I die." But Rebekah was listening in the shadows as Isaac spoke. The moment Esau departed for the open fields to hunt, she turned to her younger son Jacob and whispered, "Listen, I just overheard your father speaking to your brother. He commanded Esau to hunt and prepare savory food so he might bless him in the presence of the Lord before his death. Now, my son, listen carefully and do exactly as I say. Go to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats so I can prepare a savory feast just as he likes it. Then carry it to your father to eat so that he may bless you before he faces death." Jacob said to his mother, "But my brother Esau is covered in hair, and my own skin is smooth. What if my father touches me? I will seem like a deceiver, bringing a curse upon myself instead of a blessing." But she replied, "Let that curse fall on me, my son. Just do exactly what I say. Go and get them for me." So he went and brought them to his mother, and she prepared the savory food his father loved so much. Then Rebekah took the finest garments of her elder son Esau, which were kept in the house, and dressed her younger son Jacob. She wrapped his hands and the smooth skin of his neck in the hairy goat skins. Then she handed the savory meat and the freshly baked bread to her son Jacob. He went to his father and said, "Father." "Yes, my son," he answered. Who are you?
Jacob lied to his father, saying, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done exactly as you told me. Please sit up, eat my wild game, and bless me.
But Isaac asked, How did you find it so quickly, my son?
The Lord your God brought it to me, he replied. Isaac said, Come close, so I can touch you to see if you are truly my son Esau.
So Jacob stepped close to his blind father. Isaac felt him and whispered, The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are Esau's hands. He did not suspect the deception, for the hands felt hairy. So he blessed him. Are you truly my son Esau? He asked. I am, Jacob lied. Then Isaac said, Bring me the wild game to eat, so my soul may bless you. Jacob brought it to him, and he ate. He brought him wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, Come close and kiss me, my son. So he stepped forward and kissed him. When Isaac caught the scent of his clothes, he blessed him, saying, See, the smell of my son is like a fertile field, blessed by the Lord. May God give you the dew of heaven and the richness of the earth, an abundance of grain and new wine. May nations bow down to you, and peoples serve your name. Be master over your brothers. Let your mother's sons bow down before you. Cursed be those who curse you, and blessed be those who bless you. The moment Isaac finished the blessing, and Jacob had barely stepped outside, Esau returned from the wild. He too prepared a savory meal and brought it to his father. He said to his father, Let my father sit up and eat of his son's game, that you may bless me. His father Isaac, trembling, asked, Who are you? I am your son, he answered. Your firstborn, Esau. Isaac began to shake violently. Who was it then who hunted and brought me food? I ate it all before you came, and I blessed him, and indeed he shall be blessed. Upon hearing his father's words, Esau cried out with an agonizingly loud and bitter sob, begging, Bless me, even me also, my father. But Isaac said, Your brother came with deceit and stole your blessing. Esau wept. Is he not rightly named the deceiver? Jacob, he has supplanted me twice now. First he took my birthright, and now he has stolen my blessing. Then he asked, Have you kept no blessing for me? Isaac answered, I have made him your master, and given him all his relatives as servants. I have sustained him with grain and new wine. What is left for me to give you, my son? Esau cried. Do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me also, my father. And Esau wept aloud. Why does ancient trauma echo through our modern lives? His father Isaac answered him, Your dwelling will lie far from the richness of the earth. You will live by the sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw his heavy yoke from your neck. Esau harbored a bitter grudge against Jacob because of the blessing their father had given him. He muttered to himself, The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. When Rebekah learned what her older son Esau had secretly plotted, she immediately sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, Your brother, Esau, is comforting his dark rage with plans to murder you. Now, my son, do exactly as I tell you. Flee at once to the safety of my brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him for a while until your brother's blind fury finally cools down. When his anger finally fades, and he forgets the betrayal you committed, I will send word to bring you back. Why should I lose both of my sons in a single day? Rebekah then complained to Isaac, I am utterly weary of my life because of these local Hittite women. If Jacob marries a woman from this land, from Hittite women like these, my life will not be worth living. So Isaac summoned Jacob, blessed him, and commanded him, You must not marry a Canaanite woman. Go at once to Padan Aram, to the house of your grandfather Bethuel. Choose a wife there from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. May God Almighty bless you, make you fruitful, and multiply your descendants until you become a vast community of nations. May he grant you and your offspring the blessing of Abraham, so you may inherit this land where you now live as a stranger, this land that God promised to Abraham. Then Isaac sent Jacob on his way. He journeyed to Padan Aram to Laban, son of Bethuel the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, mother of Jacob and Esau. Meanwhile, Esau discovered that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Padan Aram to find a wife, and that when he blessed him, he ordered, Do not marry a Canaanite woman. He also saw that Jacob had obeyed his parents
and had gone to Padan Aram. Esau finally realized how deeply these Canaanite women displeased his father Isaac.
So he went to Ishmael and married Mahalath Nebaioth's sister, and Ishmael's daughter Abraham's granddaughter, alongside his other wives. Meanwhile, Jacob left Beersheba, heading toward Haran. Reaching an unnamed, lonely place, he stopped for the night as the sun began to set. Resting his head upon a stone, he lay down to sleep. He dreamed of a vast stairway rising from the earth to heaven, with angels of God ascending and descending on it.
And there above it stood the Lord, saying, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac. I will give this land where you rest to you and your offspring.
Your descendants will be countless as the dust of the earth. You will spread out to the west and east, to the north and south.
All the families on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring.
I am with you, and I will protect you wherever you go, eventually bringing you back to this soil.
I will not leave you until I have fulfilled my promise. When Jacob awoke from his sleep, he realized, surely the Lord is in this place, and I was completely unaware.
Struck with fear, he whispered, how awesome is this place? This is nothing less than the house of God. This is the very gate of heaven. Early the next morning, Jacob took the stone he had slept on, set it up as a sacred pillar, and anointed it with oil. He named that place Bethel, though the city was once called Luz. Then Jacob made a solemn vow, saying, if God will indeed be with me, protecting me on this journey, giving me food to eat and clothes to wear, so that I return safely to my father's house,
then the Lord will be my God, and this stone pillar will be God's house. Of all that you give me, I will return a tenth to you.
Then Jacob resumed his journey and arrived in the land of the eastern peoples. There he saw a well in an open field, with 3 flocks of sheep resting nearby, since they watered the flocks from that well. A massive stone lay over the mouth of the well. Only when all the flocks were gathered there would the shepherds roll it away to water the sheep. Then they would roll the heavy stone back into its place over the mouth of the well. Jacob asked the shepherds, my brothers, where are you from? We are from Haran, they replied. He asked, do you know Laban, the grandson of Nahor? Yes, we know him, they said. Then Jacob asked, is he doing well? Yes, he is well, they answered. And look, his daughter Rachel is coming with the sheep. Jacob said, the sun is still high. It is not yet time to gather the flocks. Water the sheep and take them back to pasture. We cannot, they replied, until all the flocks assemble and the stone is rolled from the well's mouth. Only then do we water the sheep. And as he spoke, Rachel arrived with her father's sheep, a shepherdess stepping into his unfolding destiny. What if ancient scripture is a map of our own souls? Like when Jacob first saw Rachel, he rolled the heavy stone from the well, uncovering a deeper thirst. After watering her flock, he kissed Rachel and wept aloud, feeling his own exile. He whispered his identity, a kinsman to her father, a son of Rebekah, and she ran home with the news. Upon hearing of his nephew's arrival, Laban rushed out. He embraced the weary traveler, kissing him, and welcomed him into the safety of his home. There Jacob laid bare his troubled past. Laban looked deep into his eyes and declared, you are indeed my own flesh and blood. After Jacob lived with him for a full, quiet month, Laban asked, should you labor for free just because we are kin? Tell me your price. Now Laban had 2 daughters of his own. The elder was Leah, and the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were dull, but Rachel possessed a breathtaking, radiant beauty. Jacob, consumed by his desire for Rachel, proposed, I will serve you 7 years to win your younger daughter's hand. Laban agreed, it is far better that I give her to you than to a stranger. Stay with me. So Jacob labored 7 years for Rachel, but they felt like mere days because of his profound love. Finally, Jacob demanded, give me my bride. My service is done, and I wish to make her my wife. So Laban gathered the whole community for a wedding feast. But when darkness fell, he secretly brought Leah and gave her to Jacob. Jacob slept with her in the dark. Meanwhile, Laban gave his servant Zilpah to Leah as her personal maid. When morning light broke, there sat Leah. Devastated, Jacob confronted Laban. What have you done to me? Did I not serve you for Rachel? Why did you deceive me? Laban replied. Our customs forbid marrying the younger before the elder. Honor her bridal week first. Then we will give you the younger too. if you promise 7 more years of labor. Jacob agreed and completed Leah's week. Only then did Laban give him Rachel as his wife, sending his servant girl Bilhah to serve as her maid. Jacob slept with Rachel too, loving her far more than Leah. And so he served Laban another 7 long years. When the Lord saw Leah was unloved, he opened her womb while Rachel remained barren. Leah conceived and bore a son. She named him Reuben, declaring, "The Lord has seen my suffering. Surely now my husband will finally learn to love me." She conceived again, and upon bearing another son, she whispered, "The Lord heard I was unloved, so he gave me this child too." So she named him Simeon. Again she conceived and bore a son, saying, "Now my husband will hold me close, for I have given him 3 sons." So he was named Levi. Conceiving a 4th time, she bore a son and said this time, "I will praise the Lord." So she named him Judah. Then Leah stopped bearing children. When Rachel saw her own arms remained empty, she grew bitterly jealous of her fertile sister. She cried out to Jacob, "Give me children or I will die." Jacob snapped back in anger, "Am I in God's place? Who denied you children?" So she said, "Here is Bilhah, my maid. Sleep with her so she can bear children on my behalf and build a family through her proxy." She gave him her servant Bilhah as a wife. Jacob slept with her, and she conceived, bearing him a son. Rachel declared, "God has vindicated me. He heard my desperate plea and gave me a son." So she named him Dan. Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a 2nd son. Rachel cried out, "I have struggled intensely with my sister, and I have prevailed." She named him Naphtali. Seeing she was no longer bearing Leah, took her maid Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Zilpah bore Jacob a son, and Leah exclaimed, "What good fortune!" So she named him Gad. When Zilpah bore Jacob a 2nd son, Leah rejoiced, "How happy I am! Now all women will call me blessed." So she named him Asher. During the wheat harvest, Reuben found mandrake plants in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Rachel begged for some of her son's mandrakes. Leah spat back, "Was it not enough that you stole my husband's love? Would you take my son's mandrakes too?" Rachel bargained. "He can sleep with you tonight in exchange for those roots." When Jacob walked in from the fields that evening, Leah stepped out to meet him. "You must sleep with me," she declared. "I have hired you with mandrakes." So he slept with her. God heard Leah. She conceived and bore Jacob a 5th son, saying, "God has rewarded me for giving my maid to my husband." She named him Issachar. Soon Leah conceived again, bearing Jacob a 6th son. Leah hoped her husband would finally honor her after 6 sons. Don't we too still search for validation in all the wrong places? She named him Zebulun. Later a daughter arrived whom she called Denina. Then in the silence, God remembered Rachel. He heard her plea and unlocked her womb. She conceived, bearing a son, and whispered, "God has finally erased my shame." She named him Joseph, praying, "May the Lord grant me yet another son." Once Joseph was born, Jacob spoke to Laban, "Release me now, so I may return to my own native land. Let me take my wives and children whom I earned through hard labor and go. You know how faithfully I served you." But Laban replied, "If you hold any regard for me, please stay. My omens reveal that God blessed me because of you." He continued, "Name your price and I will pay." Jacob replied, "You know how I labored and how your herds thrived under my watch. Your tiny flock has grown into abundance for the divine, blessed you at every step of my journey. But tell me, when will I finally build a future for my own family?" "What should I pay you?" Laban asked. Jacob answered, "Pay me nothing at all, but if you agree to this single condition, I will continue to shepherd and guard your animals. Let me walk through your herds today, pulling out every speckled and spotted sheep, every dark-colored lamb, and every spotted goat. These shall be my earnings, and my own integrity will stand as my witness tomorrow. When you come to inspect my future wages, any goat in my care that is not speckled or spotted, and any lamb that is not dark, will be branded as stolen." "Agreed," Laban replied. "Let it be exactly as you say." But that very day, he secretly removed all the striped and spotted male goats and all the speckled females, including every animal with white markings and all the dark lambs, putting them under the watchful guard of his own sons. He placed a 3-day distance between himself and Jacob, leaving his nephew to shepherd the remainder of his flocks. Jacob, however, cut fresh branches of poplar, almond, and plane trees, peeling back the bark to reveal the bright white inner wood in long stripes. He laid these striped branches directly in the watering troughs, so they would catch the eyes of the herds when they came to drink. And when the animals came to drink in their breeding season, they mated before the patterns, giving birth to striped, speckled, and spotted offspring. Jacob then separated these newborn animals, forcing the remaining herds to face the striped and dark-colored beasts belonging to Laban. Through this, he built up his own herds, keeping them apart from Laban's stock. Whenever the robust females came to mate, Jacob would lay the branches in the troughs, coaxing them to breed near the patterns. But if the breeding animals were feeble, he withheld the striped branches. Consequently, the frail stock went to Laban, while the vigorous herds became Jacob's. Through these means, the man grew incredibly wealthy, acquiring vast herds, male and female servants, along with camels and donkeys. Soon Jacob heard Laban's sons complaining, "Jacob has stripped our father of everything, building his massive wealth solely on our family inheritance." He also sensed a cold shift in Laban, whose warmth had vanished. Then God spoke to Jacob, "Return to the home of your ancestors, to your own people, and I will walk with you." So Jacob summoned Rachel and Leah, calling them out to the pastures where his flocks grazed. He told them, "I see your father no longer looks at me with favor, but the God of my ancestors has protected me. You know I served your father with my entire strength, yet he cheated me, altering my wages 10 times over. Still, God never let him ruin me. If he decreed my pay would be the speckled ones, then the entire herd birthed speckled young. And if he declared my wage was the striped, then all the offspring were born striped. In this way God reclaimed your father's herds and handed them to me. Once during breeding season I had a vision where I looked up and saw that the male goats mating with the flock were striped, speckled, or spotted. God's messenger spoke to me in that dream, calling Jacob, and I answered, 'Here I am.' He said, 'Open your eyes and see that all the male goats mating with the flock are striped, speckled, or spotted. For I have watched everything Laban has done to you. I am the God of Bethel, the holy place where you anointed a pillar and made a sacred vow. Now leave this country immediately and return to your birthland.' Rachel and Leah answered, 'Is there any inheritance left for us in our father's house? He treats us like strangers. He sold us off and squandered every bit of the wealth paid for our lives. Truly, all the riches God reclaimed from him belong to us and our offspring. Do whatever God has commanded you to do.' Then Jacob gathered his children and wives, placing them upon camels, driving his vast herds ahead of him, taking everything he had earned in Padan Aram to return to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. While Laban was away shearing his sheep, Rachel quietly stole her father's ancient household gods. Jacob chose betrayal over truth, slipping into the dark without a word. He crossed the river with everything he owned, fleeing toward the rugged peaks of Gilead. 3 days passed before Laban discovered his son-in-law had vanished. Gathering his men, he pursued Jacob for 7 days, finally cornering him in the desolate hills of Gilead. But that night the divine invaded Laban's sleep with a warning, "Do not utter a single word to Jacob, good or bad." Jacob had pitched his camp on those cold slopes when Laban finally overtook him, setting up his own tents in the shadow of Gilead. Laban confronted him, demanding answers. "What have you done? You tricked me, dragging my daughters away like prisoners of war. Why did you flee like a thief in the night? If you had told me, I would have sent you off with songs, harps, and celebration. You denied me even a final kiss for my own daughters and grandchildren. You acted like a fool. I hold the power to crush you here, but last night your father's God warned me not to speak a single word to you, good or bad. I know you fled because you were desperate to return to your father's home. But tell me, why did you steal my gods?" Jacob replied, "I was terrified you would tear your daughters away from me by force. But if you find anyone here harboring your gods, let them be put to death before our kinsmen search through my things. If you find anything that belongs to you, take it back now." Jacob had absolutely no idea that his beloved Rachel was the thief. Laban tore through every tent, searching Jacob's, Leah's, and the servants' quarters, but found nothing. Leaving Leah's tent behind, he finally stepped into the tent of Rachel. But Rachel had hidden the family idols inside her camel's saddle, and she was sitting directly on top of them. Laban ransacked her belongings, but found nothing. Rachel looked at her father and said, "Please do not be angry, my lord, that I cannot stand before you. The way of women is upon me." And though he searched everywhere, the idols remained hidden. Furious, Jacob turned on Laban. "What is my crime?" he demanded. "What sin did I commit that drove you to hunt me down like prey? Now that you have rummaged through everything I own, what have you actually found that belongs to your house? Lay it out right here for our families to see, and let them judge between us. I have served you faithfully for 20 long years. I cared for your flocks so well, they never miscarried. Nor did I ever feast on your rams or bring you animals torn by predators. I absorbed those losses myself while you demanded I pay for every single sheep stolen, whether by day or night. That was my life. I was scorched by the sun by day, frozen by the frost at night, and sleep abandoned my eyes. For 20 years in your house I labored. 14 years I gave you for your daughters, and 6 years for your flocks, while you changed my wages 10 times over. If the God of my father, the great God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not stood beside me, you would have sent me away penniless. But God saw my misery and the work of my hands, and last night he judged you." Then Laban answered him, "These women are my daughters, these children are my own, and these flocks belong to me. Everything you see is mine. Yet what can I do today to my daughters or the children they have borne? Let us make a sacred covenant, you and I, to stand as a silent witness between us." Jacob reached down, took a heavy stone, and set it up as a pillar. Then he told his relatives to gather more stones. They piled them into a mound and ate a meal together beside it. Laban named it Jagar Sahadutha, while Jacob called the place Galeed. Laban declared, "This heap stands as our witness today, which is why it bears the name Galeed." It was also named Mizpah, for he said, "May the Lord watch over us when we are separated from one another. If you ever mistreat my daughters or take other wives besides them, remember that even if no one else is around, God stands as a witness between us." Laban then pointed to the stones and said, "Look at this heap, and this pillar I have placed between us. This heap is our witness, and this pillar is a witness that I will not cross past this heap to your side to harm you, and you will not cross this heap to my side to harm me. May the God of Abraham and the God of Nahor, the God of their fathers, judge between us." And Jacob swore an oath by the fear of his father Isaac. He offered up a sacrifice there on the rugged mountain, inviting his relatives to share a meal. After eating, they rested there for the night. At dawn, Laban kissed his daughters and grandchildren, offering them his final blessing. Then he turned back toward his home. As Jacob continued on his path, the angels of God met him. When Jacob looked upon them, he whispered, "This is the camp of God." And so he named that holy place Mahanaim. Jacob then dispatched messengers ahead to his brother Esau, living in the distant land of Seir, the rugged country of Edom. What happens when you must finally face the person you betrayed? Jacob told his messengers, "Tell my master Esau that his servant has been living with Laban until now. I have acquired oxen, donkeys, flocks, and many servants, both male and female. I am sending this message to my lord, hoping to find grace in your sight." The messengers returned with terrifying news. "We met your brother Esau, and he is marching toward you right now with 400 men at his back." Overcome with deep terror and anxiety, Jacob split his people, his flocks, herds, and camels into 2 separate camps. He reasoned that if Esau attacked one camp, the remaining group might at least survive. Then Jacob cried out in prayer, "God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, Lord, you told me to return to my homeland and family, promising to bless me. Yet I am entirely unworthy of the constant love and truth you have shown me. I crossed this Jordan River with nothing but a walking staff, and now I fill 2 camps. Rescue me, I beg you, from my brother Esau. I fear he will destroy us all, showing no mercy to the mothers and their children. But you promised to bless me to make my future family as countless as the grains of sand on the seashore." He stayed there that night, choosing a massive peace offering from his possessions to give to his brother Esau: 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 camels with their young, 40 cows, 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. He handed them to his servants in separate droves, telling them, "Go ahead of me, and leave a clear space between each herd." Then he gave strict orders to the lead servant. "When my brother Esau meets you and asks, 'Who is your master, where are you heading, and who owns these herds?' you must reply, 'They belong to your servant Jacob. It is a gift sent to my lord Esau, and Jacob is close behind us." He gave the exact same instructions to the second group, the third, and all the rest. "Say this to Esau when you encounter him, and make sure to add, 'Your servant Jacob is following right behind us.'" He hoped to disarm his brother's rage with these gifts. He thought, "Maybe after all this, he will look at me with mercy." The massive caravan of gifts moved ahead into the darkness while Jacob spent the night alone in the camp. During the dark hours, Jacob woke, took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons, and crossed the Jabbok River. After sending his family and everything he owned across the water, Jacob was left completely alone. Suddenly, a mysterious figure wrestled with him until the dawn. Seeing he could not defeat Jacob, the figure struck the socket of his hip, dislocating it instantly as they struggled in the dark. The stranger said, "Let me go, for the morning is breaking." But Jacob cried, "I will not release you until you bless me." The stranger asked, "What is your name?" He whispered, "Jacob." The figure replied, "Your name is no longer Jacob, but Israel, for you have struggled with both God and men, and you have prevailed." Jacob begged, "Tell me your name." But the figure asked, "Why do you seek my name?" And he blessed him right there. Jacob named that place Peniel, saying, "I have looked upon God face to face, and my soul was spared." The sun broke over the horizon as he left Peniel behind, limping with every step. This is why, even today, the descendants of Israel do not eat the thigh tendon, marking the place where Jacob was wounded during his sacred struggle. Jacob looked up to see Esau approaching with 400 warriors. So he quickly divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and his 2 servants. He placed the female servants and their children first, Leah and her family behind them, and Rachel and Joseph safely in the very back. Step by step, Jacob walked ahead of them all, bowing low to the dusty earth 7 times as he drew near. But Esau ran to him, throwing his arms around his neck in a deep embrace. He kissed him, and both men wept openly. Then Esau noticed the women and children. "Who are these people with you?" Esau asked. Jacob replied, "These are the children God has graciously given to your servant." Then the female servants and their children stepped forward and bowed down low. Next, Leah and her children approached to bow, followed last of all by Joseph and Rachel, who also bowed before him. Esau asked, "What was the meaning of all those herds I met?" Jacob answered, "To win your favor, my lord." But Esau replied, "I have more than enough, brother. Keep what is yours." But Jacob insisted, "No, please, if I have found favor in your sight, accept this offering from my hand. For looking upon your face is like looking into the face of God. Now that you have welcomed me back, please take this gift. God has showered me with grace, and I truly have everything I could ever need." Because Jacob pleaded, Esau finally relented and accepted. Then Esau said, "Let us travel on together. I will ride beside you." But Jacob answered, "My Lord knows the children are fragile, and I must proceed slowly for the nursing ewes and cows in my care. If forced too hard for a single day, everything dies. Our weary souls need that grace. Why do we fear to face our destiny? Go on ahead, my lord. I must follow slowly, pacing myself with the children and herds, until I meet you in Seir." Esau offered to leave some of his guards behind, but Jacob refused, asking, "Why do that? Just let me find favor in your eyes, my lord." So that very day, Esau turned back toward Seir, but Jacob journeyed to Succoth. There he built a house for himself and made shelters for his cattle. This is why the place is named Sukkot. Returning from Padan Aram, Jacob arrived safely at Shechem in Canaan, pitching his camp just outside the city gates. For 100 pieces of silver, he bought the plot of land where he camped from the sons of Hamor, Shechem's father. There he built an altar, naming it El Elohe Israel, the God of Israel. Then Dinah, the daughter Leah had borne to Jacob, went out to meet the local women of that land. When Shechem, son of Hamor the Hivite, the local ruler, saw her, he seized her and took her by force, obsession masked as love. He was drawn to Dinah, Jacob's daughter, and tried to soothe her with tender words. Shechem begged his father Hamor, "Get me this girl as my wife." When Jacob learned his daughter had been violated, his sons were out in the fields tending the livestock. So Jacob buried his anger, choosing silence until his sons returned. Meanwhile, Shechem's father Hamor went out to negotiate with Jacob. By then, Jacob's sons had rushed back from the fields, having heard the terrible news. An ancient rage ignited within them. They felt a deep, wounding grief because Shechem had violated Jacob's daughter, crossing a sacred boundary that should never be crossed. But Hamor pleaded with them, saying, "My son Shechem has set his heart on your daughter. Please let him marry her. Let our families intermarry. Give your daughters to us and take our daughters for yourselves. You can live among us. The land is yours to explore. Settle here, trade freely, and acquire your own property." Then Shechem spoke directly to Dinah's father and brothers. "Show me favor," he pleaded, "and I will pay whatever you demand. Set the bride price and the marriage gifts as high as you like. I will pay whatever price you ask of me. Just give me the girl as my wife." But their sister Dinah had been defiled. Jacob's sons replied deceitfully as they spoke to Shechem and his father Hamor. "We cannot do such a thing," they lied. "We cannot give our sister to an uncircumcised man. To us, that would be an absolute disgrace. We will consent only on one condition, that you become like us and circumcise every male among you. Only then will we give you our daughters and marry yours. We will settle among you and become one people with you. But if you refuse to be circumcised, we will take our sister and leave immediately." This proposal sounded fair to Hamor and his son Shechem. The young man, the most respected in his father's house, lost no time in acting, for he was deeply infatuated with Jacob's daughter. So Hamor and Shechem went straight to the city gate to speak with their fellow citizens. "These men are friendly toward us," they explained. "Let them live and trade here. The land has plenty of room for them. We can marry their daughters and they can marry ours. But they will only agree to become one people with us if all our males are circumcised, just as they are. Won't all their livestock wealth and animals eventually become ours? Let us agree to their terms, and they will settle here." Every man who gathered at the city gate agreed with Hamor and Shechem, and every male in the city was circumcised. 3 days later, while the men were still in intense pain, 2 of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, drew their swords, attacked the unsuspecting city, and slaughtered every single male. They slaughtered Hamor, and Shechem dragged Dinah from the house and left. Then Jacob's sons plundered the city where their sister had been defiled, stripping the dead. They seized their flocks, herds, and donkeys, taking everything both inside the city walls and out in the open fields. They took all their wealth, captured their women and children, and looted everything left inside the homes. Then Jacob confronted Simeon and Levi, saying, "You have brought ruin upon me. You've made me a stench to the Canaanites and Perizzites who dwell in this land. Our numbers are small. If they unite and attack, my entire family is doomed." But they spat back, "Should we let him treat our sister like a whore?" Then God spoke to Jacob, "Go up to Bethel and settle there. Build an altar to the God who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau." So Jacob commanded his entire household and everyone with him, "Throw away your foreign gods. Purify your minds and bodies, and put on clean clothes. Come, let us rise and journey to Bethel. Where do we turn in our deepest distress? I must build an altar to the God who answered me and walked beside me always." They surrendered their false idols and the gold in their ears, the heavy symbols of their old fractured selves which Jacob buried beneath the sacred oak. As they journeyed, a profound divine dread fell upon the surrounding cities, silencing any who wished to pursue them. Thus Jacob and his entire camp arrived safely at Luz, the place now called Bethel. There he raised his altar, naming it El Bethel. For here the divine was revealed during his desperate escape from his brother. Here too Deborah, Rebekah's beloved nurse, passed away and was buried beneath the weeping oak of Bethel. They called it the Oak of Weeping. Upon his return, the Creator appeared to him once more, offering a blessing of transformation, telling him that his old self of Jacob would no longer define him. His new name is Israel, And God declared that He is the Almighty, urging him to multiply and let a new future begin. A great assembly of nations shall rise from your lineage, and kings will spring from your own flesh. The sacred ground I promised to Abraham and Isaac is now yours, a lasting inheritance for all the generations to come. Then the divine presence ascended from that powerful sacred encounter. To mark the moment, Jacob erected a monumental stone pillar, pouring out a rich drink offering to consecrate the spot. Anointing the pillar with holy oil, he named this space of deep connection Bethel, the house of God. Journeying onward from Bethel, they were still far from Ephrath when Rachel went into an agonizing, desperate labor. As she struggled in deep agony, the midwife whispered to her not to fear, for she was holding another son, but her life was slipping away with her final breath. Naming her newborn Ben-Oni, son of my sorrow. Yet his father called him Benjamin, son of my right hand. Thus Rachel was buried on the road to Bethlehem. Jacob raised a stone monument over her resting place, a silent witness that still marks her grave to this very day. Moving further, Israel pitched his tent beyond the tower of Migdal Eder. It was there that Reuben crossed a sacred line, sleeping with his father's concubine, Bilhah, and Israel heard of this deep betrayal. Jacob had 12 sons. From Leah came Reuben, his firstborn, followed by Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. From Rachel he had Joseph and Benjamin. Rachel's maidservant Bilhah bore him Dan and Naphtali, while Leah's maidservant Zilpah bore him Gad and Asher. These were the sons born to Jacob in Paddan Aram. At last, Jacob returned to his father Isaac in Mamre, near Hebron, the ancient valley where Abraham and Isaac had lived. Isaac lived for 180 years before breathing his last, passing away full of days gathered to his ancestors. His sons Esau and Jacob buried him together. This is the line of Esau, also known as Edom. Esau chose his wives from the daughters of Canaan, Adah the daughter of Elon the Hittite, Oholibamah the granddaughter of Zibeon the Hivite, and Basemath, daughter of Ishmael and sister of Nebaioth. Adah bore Eliphaz, Basemath bore Reuel, and Oholibamah bore Jeush, Jalam, and Korah. These were the sons born to Esau in the land of Canaan. Gathering his wives, his children, his entire household, along with all his vast herds of livestock and all his possessions accumulated during his time in Canaan, Esau moved far away from his brother Jacob. Their combined wealth had become too immense for them to live side by side. The pastures could no longer sustain their massive herds. Thus Esau, who is Edom, made his home in the rugged hill country of Seir. This is the genealogy of Esau, the father of the Edomites, ruling the mountain slopes of Seir. These are the names of his sons: Eliphaz, born of his wife Adah, and Reuel, born of his wife Basemath. The sons of Eliphaz were Teman, Omar, Zepho, Gatam, and Kenaz. He also had a concubine named Timnah, who bore him Amalek. These were the descendants of Adah. The sons of Reuel were Nahath, Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. These were the grandsons of Basemath. And from Esau's wife Oholibamah, daughter of Anah and granddaughter of Zibeon, came Jeush, Jalam, and Korah. These were the tribal chiefs of Esau. From Eliphaz, Esau's firstborn, came the powerful chiefs Teman, Omar, Zepho, Kenaz, Korah, Gatam, and Amalek, ruling the territory of Edom. These grandsons of Adah were joined by Reuel's sons, the chiefs Nahath, Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. These were the chiefs descended from Reuel in Edom, grandsons of Basemath. Alongside them were the sons of Oholibamah chiefs, Jeush, Jalam, and Korah. These were the tribal rulers descended from Esau's wife, Oholibamah, daughter of Anah. These were the sons of Esau, also known as Edom, and their chiefs. Alongside them lived the sons of Seir the Horite, the native inhabitants: Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anah, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishan, the native Horite chiefs who ruled the land of Seir. Lotan's sons were Hori and Hemam, and his sister was Timnah. Shobal's sons were Alvan, Manahath, Ebal, Shepo, and Onam. Zibeon's sons were Aiah and Anah, the same Anah who found hot springs while tending his father's beasts. Even in our daily grind, unexpected water of life, awaits, whose names lie forgotten under the dust. Ana Dishon, Oholibama, a lineage of forgotten choices. Dishon's sons, Hemdan Eshban, Ithran Keran. Ezer's sons, Bilhan, Zavan, Akan, and the sons of Dishan, Uz, and Aran, ancient Horite rulers of a lost world. Lotan, Shobal, Zibian, Ana, Dishan, Ezer, and Dishan. These Horite chiefs divided Seir ruling Edom before any Israelite king rose. Is their ancient struggle for power still mirrored in us today? Bela Beor's son ruled Edom from Dinhaba. Did his crown bring him peace? Bela died, replaced by Jobab of Bozrah. When Jobab died, Husham of the Temanites ruled. A relentless cycle of mortal power chasing the wind. When Husham died, Hadad, who crushed the Midianites in the country of Moab, succeeded him as king. His city was called Avith. Hadad fell, then Samlah of Masrekah took the throne. When he perished, Shaul of Rehoboth ruled, seeking security by the rushing river. Shaul died, succeeded by Baal Hanan, Akbor's son. Upon his death, another Hadad arose, a constant human desperate struggle to leave a lasting mark. His city was Po, his wife Mehetabel. Shadows fading into oblivion. Daughter of Matred and Mezahab. These were Esau's leaders whose inner struggles formed the very borders of their ancient hostile territories. Timnah, Alva, Japheth, Oholibama, Elah, Pinion, Kenaz, Teman, Mibzar, Magdiel, Iram, the chiefs of Edom. Their geography is a map of our own divided souls. This was Esau, the father of the Edomites, but Jacob settled in Canaan, his father's homeland. Here begins a psychological journey of exile, faith, and family betrayal. At 17, young Joseph watched the flocks with his half-brothers, the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, walking in the shadow of family tension. Joseph brought their father bad reports about them. Now Jacob loved Joseph more than all his other sons, a child of his old age, and gifted him a magnificent, multicolored robe. Seeing this blatant favoritism, his brothers began to hate him, unable to speak a single kind word. This was the birth of bitter sibling rivalry. Then Joseph had a dream. When he shared it with them, their hatred and resentment grew even deeper. He told them, "Please listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain in the field, when suddenly my sheaf stood upright, and your sheaves bowed down to mine." His brothers sneered. "Do you really think you will rule over us? Will you actually force us to bow?" They hated him even more for his words. But then came a second dream, and once again, he could not keep it to himself. He told them, "Listen, I had another dream, and this time the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were all bowing down to me." When he told his father, Jacob rebuked him. "What kind of dream is this? What does it say about your pride? Are your mother, your brothers, and I really supposed to come and bow to the very earth before you?" His brothers simmered with jealousy, but Jacob quietly pondered the matter. Soon the brothers took the flocks to graze near Shechem. Jacob called for Joseph. "Your brothers are tending the flocks near Shechem, far from home. I am going to send you to them." "I am ready," Joseph said. Jacob told him, "Go and see if your brothers and the flocks are safe, and bring word back to me." So Jacob sent him out away from the valley of Hebron. When Joseph reached Shechem, a stranger found him wandering lost in the fields. "What are you searching for?" the man asked. He answered, "I am looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they are keeping the sheep?" "They left," the man said. "I heard them say they were heading to Dothan." So Joseph set off and tracked them down near Dothan. They spotted him from far away. Before he could even reach them, they began plotting to murder him. "Look, the dreamer is coming," they mocked. "Let's kill him, throw him into one of these deep, empty cisterns, and tell our father a wild beast ate him. Then we'll see what becomes of his grand dreams." Hearing this, Reuben tried desperately to save the boy's life. "Let's not take his life," Reuben pleaded. "We must not spill his blood. Cast him into this empty desert pit, but do not lay a hand on him." Reuben said this, hoping to rescue him later and return him to his father. So when Joseph finally reached his brothers, they violently stripped him of his beautiful, hated robe. They dragged him to the empty cistern and threw him down into the dark, bone-dry pit. While sitting down to eat, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelite traders approaching from Gilead. Their camels were heavily loaded with rich spices, balm, and myrrh, heading down the ancient trade routes to Egypt. Judah proposed, "What do we really gain if we murder our own brother and cover up his blood? Let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and keep our hands clean. He is, after all, our own flesh and blood." The brothers agreed. When the Midianite merchants passed, they pulled Joseph out of the dry pit and sold him for 20 silver shekels to the traders who took him to Egypt. Finding the cistern empty, Reuben tore his clothes in despair, a timeless echo of the grief we face when our shadow conquers us. What happens when our guilt catches up? Reuben cried out, "The boy is gone! Where can I turn now?" To cover their sin, they slaughtered a goat, dipping Joseph's fine robe in blood. They brought this stained lie to their father, whispering, "We found this. Examine it. Is this your son's coat?" Jacob recognized it instantly, weeping, "It is my boy's robe. A wild beast has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces." Jacob tore his clothes and wore rough sackcloth, grieving for days. His children tried to comfort him, but his deeply broken soul refused consolation. "No," he wept, "I will carry this grief to my grave." And so a broken father wept on. Meanwhile, Joseph was sold into Egyptian exile, bought by Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and captain of the guard. At that moment, Judah chose isolation, wandering away to stay with an Adulamite named Hira. In that foreign land, Judah met a Canaanite woman, the daughter of Shua. He married her, and she gave birth to a son, whom Judah named. Soon she conceived again, giving birth to a second son, whom she named Onan. She then bore a third son, naming him Shelah. This birth occurred while they stayed in Shezib. Judah selected a wife named Tamar for his oldest But was wicked in the eyes of God, so the Lord took his life. Judah commanded Onan to fulfill his duty marrying Tamar, to carry on his deceased brother's lineage. But Onan's heart was selfish, knowing that any child born from this union would never truly belong to him. So whenever they came together, he deliberately wasted his seed on the ground to deny his brother an heir. This act of greed and betrayal was evil to the Lord, so he took Onan's life too. Judah told Tamar, "Return to your father's house as a widow until my youngest son Shelah grows up." But Judah feared Shelah would also die like his brothers. So Tamar went back to her father's home. Years passed and Judah's wife died. Once his deep mourning ended, he traveled to Timnah for the seasonal sheep shearing, accompanied by his trusted companion, Hira the Adulamite. When Tamar learned that her father-in-law was on his way to Timnah to shear his sheep, she took off her widow's garments. She covered herself with a veil to hide her identity, waiting at the gates of Enaim on the road to Timnah. She did this because Shelah had grown up, yet she was still denied her promised marriage. Seeing her veiled face, Judah assumed she was a temple prostitute waiting on the highway. Unaware of who she really was, he turned off the path to approach her, saying, "Let me come into you." She asked, "And what will you give me?" "I will send a young goat from my flock," he promised. "Will you give me a pledge until you send it?" she demanded. "What pledge should I give?" he asked. She answered, "Your seal, your cord, and the staff in your hand." So Judah handed over his identity, slept with her, and she conceived his child. Afterwards she departed, removed her veil, and dressed once more in her widow's clothes. Judah sent his friend the Adulamite with the young goat to retrieve his precious pledge, but the woman was nowhere to be found. He asked the local men, "Where is the shrine prostitute who sat by the roadside at Enaim?" "There has never been one here," they replied. He returned to Judah and admitted, "I could not find her anywhere. The local men swear no such woman was ever there." Judah sighed, "Let her keep the things, or we will become a laughingstock. After all, I tried to send the goat even if you couldn't find her." 3 months later, the news reached Judah. "Your daughter-in-law has played the harlot, and now she is pregnant." Judah demanded, "Bring her out and burn her." But as she was led away, she sent a message to her father-in-law, "I am pregnant by the man who owns these. Do you recognize whose seal cord and staff these are?" Judah recognized them and wept. "She is more righteous than I, because I refused to give her to my son Shelah." He never slept with her again. And when her time arrived, She was indeed carrying twin boys. During labor, one of the babies reached out his hand. The midwife quickly tied a scarlet thread around his wrist, declaring, "This one came out first." But he pulled his hand back, and his brother burst out first. She gasped, "How you have broken through!" So they named the child Perez. Then his brother, marked with the scarlet thread, emerged, and they named him Zerah. Meanwhile, Joseph was carried down to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian officer and captain of Pharaoh's guard, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him to this land. Yet the Lord was with Joseph, guiding his path as he served in the house of his Egyptian master. What happens when a master senses that his captive possesses an invisible divine favor, transforming every earthly burden into an effortless, undeniable triumph? Potiphar surrendered control of his entire estate, placing his whole life into the hands of an exile. The moment this Hebrew took charge, an invisible current of blessing flooded the Egyptian's house, rewriting the destiny of a pagan home. An unearthly grace touched everything the master owned, whispering through his quiet corridors and blooming in his sun-baked fields. He abandoned all worry, leaving everything to Joseph. The master lived blindly, caring only for the food placed before him. Yet Joseph was striking possessed of a quiet, physical grace. Soon his master's wife watched him with hungry eyes, demanding, "Come to my bed." But he stood firm, refusing her. "Under my watch," he answered. "My master leaves the entire estate to me. He does not worry about a single thing under this roof. No one here holds more authority than I do. He has held back nothing except you, his wife. How could I commit such a betrayal against God?" Though she pursued him daily with relentless whispers, he refused to lie beside her or even stand in her presence. Then came a quiet afternoon. He entered the empty house to work, completely unaware that he was entirely alone. She lunged, grabbing his robe, demanding his body, but he tore himself away, leaving his garment behind as he fled into the street. Left holding his empty cloak, her desire curdled into malice. She raised her voice, summoning her servants to witness his shame. "Look at this Hebrew slave our master brought here to mock us," she screamed. "He tried to force himself on me, but I shrieked for help." Hearing my loud cries, he panicked, dropped his robe, and fled the house. She kept the abandoned garment close, waiting like a trap, until her husband returned to hear her story. "That Hebrew slave you brought here tried to violate me, but when I screamed for help, he abandoned his cloak and fled." Hearing her speak of his servant's alleged betrayal, saying, "This is how your slave treated me," his trust shattered. He burned with blinding rage. The master seized Joseph and threw him into the dungeon where the king's royal prisoners were chained. Yet even in the darkness of that prison, the divine presence was with him. God showed him mercy, granting him favor with the warden. Soon Joseph was placed in charge of every single prisoner, becoming the mind and hands behind everything that happened within those stone walls. The warden never questioned Joseph's work, knowing an invisible force guided his hands, turning every dark moment into absolute success. Not long after, two of Pharaoh's closest servants, his royal cupbearer and chief baker, gravely offended the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was furious with his chief officers. He threw both the cupbearer and the baker into the secure house of the captain, the very dungeon where Joseph lay bound. The captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph's care. After they had spent many long, agonizing nights in captivity, both of these royal prisoners experienced a profound dream on the exact same night, each vision carrying its own mysterious heavy weight. When Joseph saw them the next morning, he noticed a deep, haunting despair on their faces. He asked these fallen officials of Pharaoh, "Why do your faces look so heavy and sorrowful today?" "We both had intense dreams," they replied, "but there is no one here to reveal their meaning." Joseph answered, "Does not the revealing of mysteries belong to the divine? Share them with me." So the cupbearer spoke first. He said, "In my vision, a grand grapevine appeared before me, spreading out with 3 distinct branches. It budded, burst into bloom, and its clusters ripened into rich grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand. I took those grapes, squeezed them into his cup, and served him." Joseph nodded. "Here is the meaning. The 3 branches represent 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift your head high and restore you to your position. You will place the royal cup in his hand, just as you once did. But when you are free, please remember me. Speak of my plight to Pharaoh and pull me from this dungeon. For I was stolen from my homeland, and even in this dark place I have done nothing to deserve these chains." Seeing that the interpretation brought hope, the chief baker eagerly spoke up. "I also had a vivid dream. 3 baskets of bread were stacked upon my head. The top basket held pastries for the king, but wild birds descended, eating them directly from my head." Joseph sighed. "This is the meaning. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head, hanging you from a tree, while birds feast on your flesh." 3 days later, on Pharaoh's birthday, the king held a magnificent feast for all his royal officials. Before his entire court, he summoned both the chief cupbearer and the baker, deciding their fates. He restored the cupbearer to his high rank, placing the cup in Pharaoh's hand, a reminder of our own silent restoration. While the baker faced the gallows as predicted, the spared cupbearer fell back into comfort, completely forgetting the young captive left rotting in the dark, lost to memory. For 2 long years, until a terrifying nightmare gripped Pharaoh's soul. He stood on the banks of the sacred Nile, watching 7 fat, magnificent cows rise from the depths to feed quietly among the reeds. Then 7 skeletal, grotesque beasts emerged from the water, standing next to them. In a horrific display, these starved, ugly monsters completely devoured the healthy, fat cattle on the riverbank. Pharaoh bolted awake, gasping. Drifting back to sleep, a second vision came. 7 thick, golden ears of grain sprouted beautifully from a single, strong stalk. Right behind them, 7 withered, thin heads sprouted, scorched by the harsh desert wind. These hollow stalks devoured the healthy golden grain. Pharaoh awoke once more, sweating. It was only a dream. Morning brought no peace to his deeply troubled soul. He quickly summoned all of Egypt's mystics and sages, sharing his terrifying nightmares. But not one could decode the mystery. The chief cupbearer admitted, "Today I am reminded of my own past failures. Years ago you were furious with your servants, throwing me and the chief baker into the prison of the captain of the guard. We both experienced intense dreams on the very same night, and each vision held a unique hidden truth. Locked away with us was a young Hebrew, a slave to the guard. We shared our mysteries with him, and he decoded them, giving each dream its true meaning. Everything unfolded exactly as he said. I returned to my high office at your side while the baker was sent to the gallows. Instantly, the king ordered Joseph's release, dragging him from the deep, dark dungeon. Once shaved and dressed, he stood before royalty. Pharaoh looked at him and said, "I had a dream, and not a single soul can explain its meaning. But I hear you only need to listen to a dream to understand it." Joseph answered simply, "I possess no such power myself. Only God can give Pharaoh the peace he seeks." Pharaoh began, "In my dream I was standing on the banks of the Nile, when 7 magnificent fat cows climbed out of the river to feed quietly among the reeds. Right behind them, 7 wretched, bone-thin cows emerged. I have never seen such hideous, sickly beasts in all the land of Egypt. The starved, ugly animals devoured the 7 fat cows that came out first. Yet even after eating them, they stayed just as hollow and hideous as before. You could not tell they had eaten at all. Then I awoke. Next I saw 7 golden, heavy heads of grain growing beautifully on a single stalk. Right after 7 withered, thin heads sprouted, scorched by the harsh desert wind. The ruined heads of grain swallowed the 7 healthy ones whole. I told my mystics, but none could explain it," Pharaoh said. Then Joseph spoke. "Both of these dreams carry the exact same warning. God is showing you what lies ahead. The 7 healthy cows and the 7 golden heads of grain represent 7 years of abundance. They are the exact same message. The 7 starved, ugly cows that crawled up later, and the 7 worthless heads of grain scorched by the desert wind, are also 7 years. They are 7 years of severe famine. It is exactly as I said. God has revealed what he is about to bring. 7 years of incredible prosperity are coming to Egypt, but 7 years of deep famine will follow immediately. The times of plenty will be completely forgotten as starvation sweeps across the nation. No one will remember the prosperous times, because the coming drought will be incredibly devastating. You received 2 versions, because the divine has firmly decided this destiny, and he will set it in motion in the very near future. Therefore, you must now find a wise and discerning leader to oversee the entire land of Egypt. You should appoint overseers to collect a fifth of all the crops harvested during the 7 years of plenty. Let them gather all the extra food from these coming prosperous years, storing the grain in royal cities under your direct authority to serve as food. This supply will serve as a vital reserve for the 7 years of severe famine that will hit Egypt, ensuring the entire country is not destroyed by starvation. This strategy sounded wise to the king and all his advisors. Pharaoh asked his court, "Where else could we find someone filled with the very Spirit of God?" Turning to Joseph, the king said, "Since God showed you all this, no one possesses your wisdom and insight. You will be in charge of my palace, and my entire nation will submit to your commands. Only the royal throne itself will stand above you." Then Pharaoh declared to Joseph, "I now place the entire land of Egypt under your control." The king then slid his own royal signet ring onto Joseph's finger, dressed him in fine linen robes, and placed a golden chain around his neck. Joseph rode in the second royal chariot, with heralds clearing his path, shouting for everyone to bow down. With that, he was given complete authority over all of Egypt. What happens when an exile becomes the master of his captors? Pharaoh declared, "Without your word, no one moves in Egypt." Pharaoh gave him the name Zapanath-paneah and gave him Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest of An, to be his wife. And Joseph traveled throughout Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt. Leaving the throne room, Joseph journeyed across the empire. During 7 years of supernatural abundance, the soil produced massive harvests. He gathered every scrap of food from those golden years, stockpiling the massive surplus inside the fortified cities. In every urban center, he locked away the grain harvested from the surrounding fields. The grain piled up like the sand of the sea. It grew so vast that Joseph stopped keeping records. It was simply beyond human measurement. Before the dark days of famine struck, Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, the priest of Onan, bore Joseph 2 sons. He named the firstborn Manasseh, saying, "God has made me forget all my trauma and my father's entire household." The second he named Ephraim, declaring, "God has made me incredibly fruitful in this land of my deep suffering." Then the 7 years of plenty vanished. The 7 years of brutal famine began unfolding exactly as Joseph had warned. While starvation gripped all neighboring nations, Egypt alone held on to the key to survival. As hunger tore through the Egyptian empire, the desperate people cried out to their king. Pharaoh answered them, "Go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you." With the famine choking the entire nation, Joseph unlocked the massive storehouses and sold life-saving grain to the citizens. For the starvation was devastating throughout Egypt. Desperate people from every known nation journeyed to Egypt to buy grain as the famine gripped the entire earth. When Jacob heard of Egypt's grain, he snapped at his sons. "Why do you just stand there staring at each other?" He continued, "I hear there is food in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us so that we might survive and not starve to death." So 10 of Joseph's brothers journeyed to Egypt. But Jacob refused to send Benjamin, Joseph's remaining brother, along with them. The old man was terrified that some tragedy might strike him on the road. Thus the sons of Israel joined the desperate crowds traveling south, for the famine ravaged Canaan as well. Joseph was now the ruler of the empire, the master of the grain distribution. When his brothers arrived, they fell to the earth, bowing low with their faces in the dust. Instantly recognizing his brothers, Joseph hid his identity, playing the cold stranger and speaking to them with harsh authority. "Where do you come from?" he demanded. They answered, "From the land of Canaan, simply to buy food." He knew them, but they had no idea. Remembering the dreams of his youth, Joseph barked, "You are spies! You have come to find our borders weak." "No, my lord," they pleaded. "Your servants have only come to buy bread. We are all brothers, the sons of one father. Your servants are honest. We are not spies." No, he insisted, "You have come to discover where our country lies exposed." But they pleaded, "Your servants were 12 brothers, the sons of a single man in Canaan. The youngest remains with our father, and one is no more." Joseph replied, "It is exactly as I suspected. You are spies. And here is how we will test you. By the life of Pharaoh, you will not escape this place unless your youngest brother arrives. Send one of you to go and fetch him. The rest will stay locked in dungeon cells. We must test your story to see if there is any truth in you. If not, then by the very life of Pharaoh, you are spies." He then threw them all into custody for 3 days. On the 3rd day, Joseph returned and said, "Do this, and you will survive, for I fear God." If you are truly honest, leave one brother behind in prison, while the rest of you take grain to save your starving families. But you must bring your youngest brother back to me. Prove your words are true, so you do not die. And they agreed.
They whispered, "We are surely being punished today because of what we did to our brother."
We saw his absolute terror when he begged us for mercy, but we refused to listen. Now this nightmare is happening to us. Reuben snapped back. "Didn't I warn you not to harm the boy? But you ignored me. Now we must answer for his blood." They had no idea Joseph understood every word because he spoke to them only through an interpreter. He turned away from them and broke down in tears, but collected himself and returned to speak. He had Simeon seized and bound right in front of them. Then Joseph quietly ordered their sacks filled with grain, secret silver slipped inside, and road supplies packed. Once everything was prepared, they loaded the heavy grain onto their donkeys and set off. When they stopped to camp for the night, one brother opened his sack to feed his donkey and gasped. His silver was right there in the opening. "My silver has been returned," he yelled to his brothers. "Look, it is right here in my sack." Why does the shadow of our past always catch up? Trembling, they turned to each other. What has God done to us? Returning to their father Jacob in the hills of Canaan, they carried the weight of everything that had just unfolded. They confessed the Lord of that foreign land spoke with venom, treating us like spies trying to expose their weakness. We protested our innocence, swearing we were honest men, not spies. 12 brothers, we said, born of the same father. One brother is gone, we told him, and the youngest remains with our father. But the ruler demanded proof, saying, "This is how I will test whether you are true. Leave one brother behind as hostage. Take grain to feed your starving families, and go. But you must bring your youngest brother back to me. Only then will I believe you are honorable men. Do this, and I will release your brother, allowing you to move freely through our land." But as they emptied their sacks, a cold terror struck. There in the mouth of every bag was their silver. Father and sons stared in absolute dread. Jacob cried out in agony, "You are stripping me of my children. Joseph is gone, Simeon is imprisoned, and now you want Benjamin too? Everything is against me." Reuben stepped forward, offering a desperate bargain. "Kill my own 2 sons if I fail to bring him back. Trust me with his life. I will return him." But the old man refused. "My youngest will not go with you. His brother is dead, and he is all I have left. If disaster strikes him on this road, your grief will drag my gray head down to the grave." Meanwhile, the famine tightened its suffocating grip. Soon the last grains of Egyptian wheat were gone, leaving only empty plates. Jacob pleaded with them to return and buy food. But Judah warned him, "The Lord of Egypt gave us a solemn ultimatum. You will not see my face again without your brother. If you send Benjamin with us, we will go and buy the food we need. But if you keep him here, we stay." The man was crystal clear. "Do not dare return unless your youngest brother is by your side." Israel cried out in grief, "Why did you bring this ruin upon me? Why did you tell him you had another brother?" They protested he interrogated us, asking about our home, our bloodline, asking if our father was still alive. He demanded to know if we had a brother, and we merely answered. How could we possibly know he would demand we bring him down? Judah turned to his father Israel and spoke plainly. "Send the boy with me, and let us depart so we all might live and not starve. I will guarantee his safety with my own life. Hold me personally accountable. If I fail to bring him back and place him before you, I will carry that shame for the rest of my days." If we had not wasted all this time hesitating, we could have made the journey twice by now. Finally, Israel relented. "If there is no other way, then do this. Pack the finest fruits of our land into your bags as a tribute for this master. Pack some precious balm and wild honey, rare spices, fragrant myrrh, pistachio nuts, and almonds. Take double the silver with you. You must return the money that was mysteriously put back into your bags. Perhaps it was just an oversight. Take your brother and return to the man immediately. May God Almighty grant you mercy so that he releases both Simeon and Benjamin to you. As for me, if I lose my children, so be it." With the tribute in hand, double the silver, and young Benjamin, the brothers set out. They hurried down to Egypt, presenting themselves once more to Joseph. Seeing Benjamin with them, Joseph ordered his chief steward, "Take these men to my palace. Slaughter an animal and prepare a feast, for they will dine with me at noon." The steward obeyed, leading them to the private estate. But the brothers felt only dread as they entered his house. They whispered in panic, "We are being brought here because of the silver returned to our sacks last time. He wants to ambush us, overpower us, seize us as slaves, and take our animals." Anxious, they approached Joseph's steward right at the palace entrance. "Please, my lord," they begged. "We only came down here the first time to buy grain for our families. But when we camped for the night and opened our bags, we found our silver the exact weight resting right inside our sacks. So we have brought it back to return it to you. We even brought more silver to purchase more food. We have no idea who put it there." "Quiet," the steward replied. "Peace be with you. Your God, the God of your ancestor, must have hidden treasure in your bags. I received your full payment." He then released Simeon to them. Leading them inside, the steward offered water to wash their dusty feet and fed their pack animals. They carefully arranged their tribute, waiting for Joseph to arrive at noon, having heard they would dine with him. When Joseph returned, they offered their humble tribute, bowing low to the earth. Unaware, they bowed to their own forgotten past. He greeted them, asking, "How is your elderly father, the one you spoke of? Is his spirit still whole? Is your father still living?" he asked. They replied, "Your servant our father is alive and well." They bowed low to honor him. Looking around, Joseph saw his brother Benjamin, his own mother's son, and asked, "Is this your youngest brother, the one you spoke of?" And Joseph said softly, "God be gracious to you, my son." Overcome with raw emotion at the sight of his brother, Joseph rushed out to find a place to weep, crying alone in his private chamber. Washing the tears from his face, he composed himself, stepped back outside, and commanded, "Serve the food." They seated him alone, keeping his brothers at a separate table, and the Egyptians by themselves, because dining with Hebrews was a sacred taboo, an abomination to the ancient Egyptians. The brothers were seated before him, arranged perfectly from oldest to youngest, staring at one another in sheer silent astonishment. When food was served from the ruler's table, Benjamin's portion was 5 times larger than anyone else's. They feasted and drank freely together. Then Joseph pulled his chief steward aside to give him secret instructions. "Fill their sacks with as much grain as they can carry, and hide each man's silver right at the top. Then slip my personal silver cup into the youngest brother's bag, along with his money." The steward did exactly as he was told. At dawn, the brothers set off with their loaded donkeys. They had barely left the city gates when Joseph ordered his steward, "Pursue them immediately. When you overtake them, demand to know, 'Why have you returned evil for the good shown to you? Is this not the very cup my master drinks from and uses to read secrets? You have committed a terrible crime.'" When the steward caught up with the brothers, he delivered this exact message. But they protested. "Why does my lord speak this way? We would never dream of doing such a shameful thing. Look, we even returned the silver we found in our sacks all the way from Canaan. Why on earth would we steal gold or silver from your master's house? If you find that cup on any of us, let him be put to death, and the rest of us will become your slaves." "Agreed," the steward replied, "but only the one who has the cup will become my slave. The rest of you are free." "The innocent will go free." Terrified, they quickly threw their heavy sacks to the dusty ground and tore them open. The steward searched them systematically, starting with the oldest and ending with the youngest. Inside Benjamin's sack, the silver cup gleamed. In despair, they tore their clothes. They loaded their donkeys and headed back to the city in absolute silence. Joseph was still waiting at his estate when Judah and the others arrived. They immediately threw themselves flat on the ground. "What have you done?" Joseph demanded. "Did you really think a man of my position and power wouldn't uncover the truth?" "What can we say to my lord?" Judah cried out. "How can we plead? How can we ever prove our innocence? God has exposed our hidden guilt. We are now your slaves, all of us along with the one caught with the cup." But Joseph replied, "I would never do such a thing. Only the man found with the cup will remain as my slave. The rest of you are free to return to your father in peace." Judah stepped forward, pleading, "Please, my lord, let your servant speak frankly. Do not be angry with me, even though you stand equal to Pharaoh himself. My lord asked us before, 'Do you have a father or a brother?' And we answered, We have an elderly father and a young brother born to him in his old age. His only full brother is dead, leaving him alone, and his father loves him deeply. Then you commanded us, bring him down to me so I can see him with my own eyes. But we explained, the boy cannot leave his father. If he departs, the old man will surely die. Yet you insisted, unless your youngest brother returns with you, you will never see my face again.
When we returned to our father, we repeated your words. Later, when the famine worsened, he told us, "Go back and buy us a little more food."
But we answered, we cannot go. We can only face the ruler if our youngest brother is with us. We cannot see his face without him. Then our father said to us, "You know that my wife Rachel bore me only 2 sons. One went away, and I believed he was torn to pieces. I have never seen him since that day. If you take this one too, and tragedy strikes him, you will send my gray head down to the grave in bitter grief. So now, if I return to your servant my father without this boy, whose life is so deeply bound up with his youngest son's life, the moment he sees the boy is missing, he will die. We would bring our father's gray head to the grave in sorrow. I personally guaranteed the boy's safety to my father. I promised him, if I fail to bring him back to you, I will bear the blame forever. So now please let me stay here as your slave instead of the boy, and let him return home with his brothers. How can we face our fathers when we have lost what was entrusted to us? Do not make me witness his crushing, silent grief." In that moment, the mask of the powerful ruler cracked. Joseph could no longer hide his agony. "Send everyone away," he cried. All witnesses were expelled. There, in the quiet, the exile finally faced those who had betrayed him. His weeping was a raw, unfiltered cry that echoed through the palace walls. Through tears, he spoke the terrifying words, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But his brothers stood frozen in silence, utterly paralyzed by the ghost of their old sin. Joseph urged them closer. "Look at me," he whispered. "I am your brother, the very one you cast out and sold into Egypt. Do not drown in your own shame or anger, for it was not your betrayal that ultimately drove me here, but a higher providence sending me ahead to preserve life. For 2 long years, a bitter famine has stripped the land bare. For 5 more years, the earth will yield nothing. Yet a greater hand sent me ahead of you, ensuring your survival on earth and bringing about a massive deliverance. Ultimately, it was not your betrayal that brought me here, but the divine. He raised me to counsel Pharaoh to command his palace and rule this land. Hurry back to my father and give him this message from his son. The Almighty has made me master of Egypt. Come down to me immediately. Do not hesitate. You will settle in the land of Ghan, close to my presence. You, your descendants, your herds, and everything you own. I will sustain you through the 5 years of hunger that remain. If you stay, you and everyone you love will face absolute ruin. Look at me. See with your own eyes, and let Benjamin see that it is truly my voice speaking to you. Tell my father of the immense honor I hold in Egypt. Show him everything you have witnessed, and bring him to me without delay." He threw his arms around Benjamin, sobbing deeply as Benjamin wept on his shoulder. Then, through hot tears, Joseph embraced and kissed every single brother. Only then did they speak with him. When word reached the palace that Joseph's family had arrived, Pharaoh and his entire court were genuinely pleased. Pharaoh instructed Joseph, "Tell your brothers to pack up their animals and journey back to Canaan. Bring your father and your entire household back here to me. I will give you the richest territories of Egypt, and you shall feast on the abundance of our land. Take some heavy wagons from Egypt for your wives and children. Put your aging father in them and come back to this land. Leave your old possessions behind for the absolute finest of all. Egypt is waiting for you." And so they obeyed. Joseph provided them with the wagons as promised, along with plenty of food to sustain them on the road. He gave each brother clean new garments, but to Benjamin, he gifted 300 pieces of silver and 5 fine changes of clothes. To his father he sent a massive caravan, 10 male donkeys loaded with Egypt's treasures and 10 female donkeys carrying grain, bread, and provisions for the journey. With that, he sent his brothers away. As they departed, he warned them, "Do not argue along the road." So they left Egypt behind, and returned to their father Jacob in Canaan.
They cried out to him, "Joseph is alive, and he rules the entire land of Egypt." Jacob was utterly stunned. He simply could not believe them. But when they repeated Joseph's words and when his eyes saw the grand wagons sent for him, the broken spirit of old Jacob finally revived. "It is enough," Israel declared. "My son is still alive. I must go and see him before I die." And so he gathered all he owned and set out. When he reached the borders of Beersheba, he offered sacred sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. That night, the divine spoke in a vision, calling Jacob, "Jacob." "Here I am," he answered. "I am God, the God of your father. Do not fear the descent into Egypt, for I will forge your lineage into a great nation there. I will walk beside you into Egypt, and I will lead your people home again, and Joseph's own hands will gently close your eyes." So Jacob left Beersheba. His sons carried their aging father, their wives, and their children in the grand wagons Pharaoh had provided. They brought their herds and all the wealth they had amassed during their long exile in Canaan. Thus Jacob and his entire lineage migrated to Egypt, his sons, grandsons, daughters, and granddaughters. He carried every living descendant with him into the unknown. These are the names of the sons of Israel who entered Egypt, beginning with Reuben, the firstborn of Jacob. The sons of Reuben were Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Ki. Simeon's sons were Jemu, Jamin, Ohad, Jakin, Zohar, and Shaul, born of a Canaanite woman. The sons of Levi were Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. The sons of Judah were Onan, Shelah, Perez, and Zerah, though and Onan died in Canaan. Perez's sons were Hezron and Hamel. The sons of Issachar were Tola, Pua, Jashub, and Shimron. Zebulun's sons were Sarad, Elon, and Jaleel. These 33 descendants born to Jacob by Leah in Padan Aram alongside Dinah represent the beginning of a legacy, a map of restoration for every broken family today. What secrets lie in the blood of Gad's sons, Zephon, Haggai, Shuni, Esbon, Eri, Arodi, and Oreli, and the descendants of Asher, Imnah, Ishva, Ishvi, Bariah, their sister Sarah, and Bariah's sons, Haber and Malsiel. These 16 descendants were born to Jacob through Zilpah, the maidservant given to Leah. Beside them came the sons of Jacob's cherished wife, Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin. In Egypt's shadow, Joseph fathered Manasseh and Ephraim through Asenath, daughter of the high priest of An. And the sons of Benjamin, Bala Becca, Ashbel, Gera, Namon, Ehi, Rosh, Mupim, Hopim, and Ard. These were the 14 descendants born to Jacob through Rachel. Beside them stood the lineage of Dan through Hushim, and Naphtali's sons, Jasil, Guni, Jezza, and Shillem. These were the 7 descendants born to Jacob through Bilhah, whom Laban had gifted to his daughter Rachel. Every direct descendant who journeyed to Egypt alongside Jacob, excluding the wives of his sons, numbered 66 souls in total. And when including the 2 sons born to Joseph in Egypt, the entire household of Jacob numbered 70 souls in total. Jacob sent Judah ahead of him to guide their path and receive directions to Gan. Upon reaching the borders of Gan, Joseph prepared his royal chariot and drove out to meet his father Israel. The moment Joseph appeared, he threw his arms around his father's neck and wept for a long time. Israel whispered to his son, "Now I can die in peace, having seen with my own eyes that you are still alive." Then Joseph said to his brothers and his father's family, "I must go and inform Pharaoh of your arrival. My brothers and my father's entire household who lived in Canaan have come to me. These men are lifelong shepherds. They raise livestock and have brought their flocks, herds, and belongings. When Pharaoh summons you and asks what is your daily occupation, you must reply, 'Your servants have raised livestock from our youth, just as our ancestors did before us.' Do this so you may settle in the region of Gan, for shepherds are viewed as detestable by the Egyptians." Joseph went to Pharaoh and announced, "My father and brothers, along with their flocks, herds, and all possessions, have arrived from Canaan and are now in Gan." He chose 5 of his brothers to stand before the face of Pharaoh. Pharaoh asked the brothers, "What is your trade?" They answered, "Your servants are shepherds, just as our ancestors were." They added, "We have come to dwell here for a time, for the famine is harsh in Canaan,
and our flocks have no pasture. So please allow your servants to make their home in Ghan." Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Your father and your brothers have arrived, and all the land of Egypt lies open before you. Settle your father and your brothers in the absolute finest region. Let them live in Ghan, and if any possess outstanding ability, appoint them to oversee my own royal livestock."
Then Joseph brought his aging father Jacob in and presented him to Pharaoh. After Jacob offered his blessing, Pharaoh asked him,
"How old are you?"
Jacob replied,
"The years of my earthly pilgrimage are 130. My years have been brief and difficult, far shorter than the journeys of my ancestors." Then Jacob blessed Pharaoh once more and walked out of his presence.
So Joseph settled his father and brothers in Egypt, granting them land in the country's finest region, the district of Ramesses, exactly as Pharaoh had instructed. Joseph also sustained his father, brothers, and entire family with food, providing enough for every single one of their children. Yet no food remained in the land as the famine grew devastatingly severe. Both Egypt and Canaan withered under the relentless crisis. Joseph gathered all the money to be found across Egypt and Canaan as payment for the grain, bringing this massive wealth directly into Pharaoh's palace. When the money in Egypt and Canaan was completely gone, the desperate people came to Joseph pleading, "Give us food. Why should we perish before your very eyes now that our money is gone?" Joseph replied, "If your money is gone, bring me your livestock and I will trade you food for your animals." So they brought their livestock to Joseph, and he provided them with food in exchange for their horses, sheep, goats, cattle, and donkeys. He kept them alive through that difficult year, supplying food in exchange for all their livestock. But when that year ended, they returned the next year pleading, "We cannot hide the truth. Our money is gone. Our livestock is yours, and we have absolutely nothing left to offer except our very bodies and our land. Why should we and our land perish right before your very eyes? Buy us and our fields in exchange for food, and we will serve Pharaoh. Give us seed so we can survive and keep this land from turning into a desolate wasteland." So Joseph purchased every piece of land in Egypt for Pharaoh. Every Egyptian sold their fields, trading their freedom to survive a famine that threatened to consume them. Why do we surrender our freedom for mere survival? Joseph acquired the entire land, reducing a desperate nation to absolute servitude. Only the sacred lands of the priests were spared, for they received regular food allotments directly from Pharaoh and had no need to sell. Thus, their sacred ground remained their own. Joseph then addressed the desperate masses, saying, "I have purchased you and your lands today for Pharaoh. Here is seed to plant your fields. When the harvest comes, give a fifth of it to Pharaoh. The remaining 4/5 are yours to keep as seed for your fields, and to feed yourselves, your households, and your children." "You have saved our lives," they cried. "May we find favor in the eyes of our Lord. We will be the king's servants." So Joseph established an enduring law over Egyptian land, still active today, that a fifth of all harvest belongs to Pharaoh. Only the ancestral lands of the priests remained outside of Pharaoh's control. Meanwhile, the family of Israel settled in the fertile lands of Goshen, buying property, thriving and multiplying rapidly. Jacob lived in Egypt for 17 years, bringing his lifespan to 147. As the hour of his death approached, he summoned his son Joseph and pleaded, "If I have found favor, place your hand under my thigh and swear to show me true kindness and loyalty. Do not bury me in Egypt. When I rest with my ancestors, carry me out of here and bury me in their tomb." Joseph replied, "I will do as you say." "Swear it to me," Jacob insisted. So Joseph swore his oath, and Israel bowed in worship, leaning heavily on his staff. Sometime later, Joseph was told that his father was failing. He immediately took his sons Manasseh and Ephraim to see him. Hearing that Joseph had arrived, the old patriarch summoned all his remaining strength and sat up in his bed. Jacob spoke to Joseph. "God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan, blessing me there with the promise that he would make me fruitful and multiply my descendants. He promised to make us a vast community of nations and to give this land as an eternal heritage to your descendants after you. Therefore, your 2 sons born in Egypt before my arrival will now be counted as my own children. Ephraim and Manasseh are mine, just like Reuben and Simeon. But any future children you have will belong to you. In their future inheritance, they will be registered under the names of their two brothers. Years ago, as I traveled back from Padan, to my great sorrow, Rachel died in Canaan just a short distance from Ephrath. I buried her there, by the road to Bethlehem. Peering through the shadows, Israel noticed the young men and asked, "Who are these?" "These are the sons God has given me in this land," Joseph replied. Then Israel said, "Bring them close to me, so I may bless them." The old man's eyes were failing with age, leaving him nearly blind. Joseph brought the boys close, and Jacob embraced them, kissing them with deep affection. Israel whispered to Joseph, "I never expected to see your face again, and yet God has let me look upon your children as well." Then Joseph drew his sons back and bowed low his face to the ground. Joseph took hold of both boys, placing Ephraim on his right, facing Israel's left hand, and Manasseh on his left, facing Israel's right, guiding them near. But Israel deliberately crossed his hands, reaching out his right hand to rest on Ephraim, the younger brother, and his left hand on the firstborn Manasseh, guiding the destiny in reverse. Then he blessed Joseph, saying, "May the God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has shepherded me throughout my entire life, and the angel who rescued me from harm, bless these boys. May my name and the names of Abraham and Isaac live on through them, and may they multiply abundantly across the earth." When Joseph saw his father lay his right hand on Ephraim's head, he was deeply troubled. He reached out to shift his father's hand, trying to guide it from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's. "No, Father," Joseph protested. "This boy is the firstborn. You must place your right hand on his head." But the patriarch refused. "I know, my son, I know," he whispered. "He too will rise and become a great nation. Yet his younger brother will surpass him, and his lineage will blossom into a multitude of nations." He blessed them that day, declaring, "In your name shall Israel bless," saying, "May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh." Thus he elevated Ephraim over Manasseh. Then Israel spoke to Joseph, "I am dying, but God will stay with you and return you to the homeland of your fathers. And to you, as leader of your brothers, I bequeath the mountain ridge I conquered from the Amorites with my own sword and bow." Then Jacob summoned his sons. "Gather around," he commanded, "so I can reveal what lies ahead for you in the coming days. Assemble and listen, sons of Jacob. Hear the voice of your father Israel. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my raw strength, the peak of my power, excelling in honor, yet carrying the unfulfilled potential of every soul. Why do we sabotage our own potential? Like unstable water, you will not excel. Reuben, for you defiled your father's band. Simeon and Levi are brothers of rage. Wielding weapons of violence, let my soul never enter their dark council. Never let me join their assembly. They slaughtered men in blind rage and crippled beasts for sport. Accursed is their fury. Their anger is fierce, their malice so cruel. They are scattered across Jacob. Yet Judah, your brothers will praise you. Your hand will seize the necks of your enemies, and your brothers will bow before you. You are a lion's cub, Judah. You rise from the prey, my son. Crouching like a lion, resting like a lioness, who dares to awaken him. The royal scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from his feet, until the rightful king comes, and all nations obey. He hitches his donkey to a fertile vine, his colt to the very best branch. He washes his garments in rich wine, his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, his teeth whiter than milk. Zebulun will settle along the seashore, offering a safe harbor for weary ships. His territory will stretch toward Sidon. Issachar is a strong, bony donkey resting quietly between two heavy saddlebags. Seeing how peaceful his resting place is, and how beautiful the land, he will bend his shoulder to carry burdens, submitting to forced labor. Dan will deliver justice for his people, standing proud as a true tribe of Israel. Dan will be a roadside serpent, a viper on the path, biting the horse's heels, sending the rider tumbling backward. I wait for your deliverance, Lord. Marauders will launch attacks against Gad, but he will turn and strike them right at their heels. Asher will produce rich, abundant food, serving up delicacies fit for royalty. Naphtali is a free doe that speaks beautiful words. Joseph is a fruitful bough, a thriving vine beside a fresh spring, whose branches climb over the wall. With bitter malice, archers attacked him.
They shot at him with hostility, yet his bow remained steady. His strong arms remained flexible and agile, sustained by the mighty hand of Jacob. Because of the great shepherd, the rock of Israel, and your father's God, who always helps you, by the Almighty who blesses you with gifts from heaven above, blessings from the deep waters below, and blessings of the breast and womb. Your father's blessings are greater than the blessings of ancient mountains, surpassing the bounty of the eternal hills. Let all these rest on the head of Joseph, on the brow of the prince among his brothers. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf, devouring prey in the morning, and in the evening he divides the plunder. These are the 12 tribes of Israel. This is what their father said when blessing them, giving each son the prophecy meant for him. Then he left them with final instructions. I am about to join my ancestors. Bury me with my fathers in the cave located in Ephron the Hittite's field, the cave in the field of Machpelah, near Mamre in Canaan, which Abraham bought as a tomb from Ephron the Hittite. There Abraham and his wife Sarah were buried, and there Isaac and his wife Rebekah were laid to rest. And there I buried Leah. That field and the cave within it were purchased from the Hittites. When Jacob finished giving these final instructions to his sons, he drew his feet up into the bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. Joseph threw himself upon his father, weeping and kissing him. Then Joseph ordered the physicians in his service to embalm his father Israel. So they embalmed him, a process taking 40 full days, the standard time required. The Egyptians mourned his passing for 70 days. When the mourning period ended, Joseph spoke to Pharaoh's court, asking them to present a personal request to the ruler. Tell him my father made me swear an oath, saying he was about to die and wanted to be buried in the tomb he dug in Canaan. Please let me go up to bury my father, and I will return. Pharaoh granted permission, urging Joseph to fulfill the oath he made to his father. And so Joseph journeyed up to lay his father to rest. All of Pharaoh's high officials accompanied him, including the dignitaries of his court, all the elders of Egypt, and everyone belonging to Joseph's family and his father's household. Only their children, flocks, and herds remained in Goshen. Chariots and horsemen also went with them, forming an incredibly massive caravan. When they arrived at the threshing floor of Atad near the Jordan, they wailed loudly and bitterly. There Joseph observed a 7-day period of deep mourning for his father. When the Canaanites living there saw the intense grief at the threshing floor of Atad, they remarked that the Egyptians were holding a deeply solemn ceremony, which is why that place near the Jordan is called Abel Mitzrayim. So the sons of Jacob did exactly as he commanded them. They laid him to rest in Canaan, in the cave of Machpelah near Mamre, which Abraham bought from Ephron the Hittite, returning home just as we all seek our ultimate spiritual resting place. His father buried what remains. Joseph returned to Egypt, trailing a silent crowd of mourners, yet carrying a heavier burden of unsaid truths. With their father gone, panic seized the brothers. They whispered in the shadows, what if he still holds that old grudge? What if he finally punishes us for our cruelty? Terrified of his power, they sent a messenger to weave a convenient lie. They claimed their dying father left one final desperate command. Please forgive the terrible crimes and cruelty your brothers committed against you. Forgive the brothers who sold you into exile. Pity the servants of your father's God. When Joseph heard this desperate plea, his heart broke and he wept silent tears. The brothers fell to the earth weeping and offering themselves as his slaves. But Joseph looked down at them and said, Do not fear. Do I stand in the place of God? You planned evil against me, but providence turned your malice into a greater design, saving countless lives. Do not be afraid. I will nourish you and protect your innocent children. With tender words, he healed their broken spirits. And so the family remained together in the land of Egypt. Joseph lived to be 110, witnessing his descendants thrive. He even held his great-grandchildren close upon his knees as they were born into the world. At last, Joseph spoke to his brethren. My time has come, yet the divine will not abandon you here. He will rescue you, leading you back to the home promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so he made them swear a solemn oath. When that day of deliverance comes, you must carry my bones out of Egypt. At 110, Joseph breathed his last. They embalmed his body, and he was laid inside an Egyptian coffin. From the first breath that shaped humanity to the dreams that rescued empires, Genesis is more than just ancient lore. It is a map of the human soul, charting our deepest fears and highest faith. Do not